Wow. Well, I'm not gonna gloat, but I told you guys in the last game this was going to be a win, and I gotta be honest. Right after I said that, I looked at the last 6, 7 games for OKC, and I was like, ooh, maybe this won't be a win. But I'm really glad I didn't say that on the air, so I got to come on here and act like I knew all along. No, I mean honestly, after the first half, I wasn't really sure which way this game was gonna go. The OKC Thunder came out pushing the pace, and this game seemed in the first half to be teetering more towards the OKC Thunder's pace, and the ball wasn't moving as much as I would have liked in the first half. In the second half, I think the Raptors really came on, and I liked what I saw more from them in the second half. It was a very balanced attack for the Toronto Raptors. You saw the stats on the TV. It was 18-5 when they have more than six guys. 15-8 when they have more than six guys in double digits, and they got a really balanced attack tonight. Let's take a look. A little misleading from the field goal percentage department for the OKC Thunder. Um, the Raptors, the OKC Thunder love to take more shots than their opponent. The Raptors crashed the offensive glass like crazy people tonight. Like it was absolutely insane to watch how many times they got a second, third tip, or even sometimes they would tip the ball out and cost the OKC Thunder an opportunity to run in transition. And it was just a very concerted effort. They shoot better from the field than their opponent, 6% better from the field than their opponent. The OKC Thunder did shoot about 50% of the first half, but in the second half, it was much closer to, I think, 37, 38%. They really kept them under on check. To be honest, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had me fearful in that first half, like really fearful. I think he started 9 for 11, and I was like, oh man, they have no answers for him. He was completely on another pace. He has taken such a step as a player. He is so interesting and exciting to watch, really. And if you're a fan of Canadian basketball, this is your future. And he's making a very strong case as the greatest Canadian player of all time. So obviously no shade to Steve Nash, but I mean this is legitimately very very easily a guy who's got his eyes on being a top 5 player in the NBA very soon. And the OKC Thunder have a range of very interesting pieces. It was not lost on me to be seeing Chet Holmgren and street clothes for the OKC Thunder. Let's talk about what happened, and just the boatload of draft picks. We talked about it. 29 picks for the next 6 years. They have so many options. So just the future of that team, given that they are just currently just breaking through. Shai, the best days are ahead for him. Um, it's very exciting to see what's happening for that team right now. Um, Take a look at what the OKC Thunder got. The aforementioned Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 29 points. 12 for 19, fairly efficient. Didn't really press, didn't really push anything. Josh Giddey, I thought he looked great. He looked really smooth. Um, he looked really good out there. He finishes with 13 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist. Lou Dort, OG Anunoby, like just really had something against Lou Dort tonight. Maybe you got sick of all the Lou Dort is better than OG Anunoby talk. I don't know. But I'm certainly sick of that talk. And yeah, he really showed him who's boss, blocked him a couple times going to the basket. And off the bench, I really liked what Trey Mann brought off the bench. And Isaiah Joe is just slowly morphing into one of my favorite players in the league to watch. He's such a smooth jump shooter. And you know, with how bad the OKC Thunder have been, just in terms of playing playoff picture for the last couple of years, sometimes we forget just how good Sam Presti is at identifying talent. You look at Jalen Williams, J Dub, and Jay Will. You know, we'll I don't want to spend too much time talking about Alvin Williams and Matt Devlin here, but that was fun, one of the funniest broadcasts I think I've ever heard in my life. Is just constant confusion, constant confusion. Cannot figure out who is OG Anunoby on the court. I'm pretty sure at one point they called him Isaiah George. J Dub, J Will. This was a debate that went on all night. I think Matt Devlin eventually settled into Santa Clara Jalen. Be better, guys. Just be a little bit better, man. This season's tough. The broadcast does not need to be this tough. Let's look at it for the Raptors. Very interesting lineup shakeup for the Toronto Raptors tonight. We see Precious Achiuwa joining Thaddeus Young in Nick Nurse's doghouse, and this was not something that I was seeing coming. And to be honest, probably should have. His minutes been down a lot lately, and I've been one of the biggest Christian Koloko fans probably on the planet so far. So I should be very, very happy that he got 12 minutes tonight. And I mean, look, if you're going to look at the stats, you're going to say 0 points, 3 rebounds. Is that really worth it? 1 block. Man, the impact that that guy had, like, it's impressive. He just completely, all the size that Jakob has on the inside in terms of disrupting and making guys think when they're going to the basket. And, especially this might just be matchup based, but for the OKC Thunder, obviously they have a lot of guys who like to slash to the rim. Lou Dort, Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams, J Dub, right? And obviously Shai Gilgeous-Alexander presenting some size at the rim allows a little bit more of a contest. And I thought Christian Koloko just did a great job being physical on the glass. He's been kind of out of the rotation for a while, spending a lot of time with the G League. It's really interesting to watch, his evolution. And a lot of people have talked about the two-man center lineup of Jakob and Christian Koloko going forward. Got a preview of it tonight. Looked good. We heard Nick Nurse talk about potentially Precious Achiuwa being more of a wing for the Raptors. Well, oops, DMPCD. Is this a wake-up call for Precious Achiuwa? He is too good, too talented, too athletic, and frankly, just too good a defender in terms of just raw potential to be collecting DMPCDs at this point. He's also way too big a part of your program for this to be a long-term thing, in my opinion. So you're going to have to find some time for him at some point, maybe to bring him back in somehow. I like the fact that Siakam only played 34 minutes. There's not a single player who went above 35 minutes tonight, and that's kind of what happens when you take care of business. To talk more about Gary Trent Jr., 23 points off the bench. To everyone complaining about bench scoring, where is it going to come from? Well, it came from Gary Trent Jr. tonight, and I think he did a great job just taking shots in rhythm, making a few tough shots, but also taking better shots in general. I felt like his shots were more in rhythm. Fred VanVleet, a lot of offensive toughness tonight. Like when the Raptors came out, I think he provided a really good spark in the beginning when they were trying to get it going. Some body language stuff with him that I didn't love tonight in terms of just his interactions with his teammates, but you don't get everything with him. But I thought overall, like among all the Fred VanVleet games this year, defensively he was, as a point of attack defender, not really my game for him, but as a help defender, in terms of the active hands, dealing with possibly the extra pressure of basically having to play up against the referee that you just blasted so hard. I think he played well. He had 4 steals tonight, and trust me, like he probably could have, like you could credit him with even more than that, to be honest. Like he was really a big part of why OKC Thunder felt really uncomfortable sometimes bringing the ball up the court. So I think overall a really good game for him. Jakob, kind of funny to hear Alvin Williams talking about not realizing that the OKC Thunder were fouling Jakob on purpose. So the NBA introduced the away from the play fouls. So basically, if a player is in the action and you foul them, then it's not an away from the play. So every time you use Jakob late, and as a, if he touches the ball and you foul him, it's not away from the play. And if he's setting a pick on the play, then it's not away from the play. So ultimately, it's sort of funny, but they tried to foul him a lot, and he gets to the line 10 times and he makes 8. That's crazy, right? They're expecting 5, 6. He makes 8. One of them hit back rim, somehow bounced in. Like it was like a little mini Kawhi shot. That was great. We'll talk about Scottie Barnes, of course. OG Anunoby, I thought he was really efficient. I really liked his energy on the defensive end. 2 steals, 2 blocks. Doesn't quite tell it, but battled foul trouble all night. But I thought he played really well. I mean, shoot, 17 points on 9 shots. That's efficient as hell. Pascal Siakam, we're gonna do a bit of a deeper dive into Siakam at some point in this show, maybe in between callers. We have one caller lined up right now in Ishan, and if you'd like to call in, definitely call in. But nice to see Pascal Siakam, at least statistically, looking a little bit more like himself. 25 points, 14 rebounds, 8 assists. I think the defense on the back end of the zone was a little bit troublesome. I think some of he struggled initially at the line, but he did invite contact. He went to the basket very often. And I like the fact that he took threes tonight and that he made a few of them. There were a few times, the only way this is really going to work is if him and Scottie are willing to operate outside the paint, at least when Jakob is occupying the paint. And I think that would be really, really an important part of it going forward. Um, let's. Oh, and of course, Scottie Barnes. It's really nice to see. It's nice to see the team looking for him a little bit more than they have in the past. It doesn't seem like he's an afterthought anymore. It seems like when he's, and it was a really efficient night for him, right? 19 points, 8 for 14, missed both of his threes, but balanced attacks, seven rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal. Leading the starters on a plus 23. Again, plus 23 minus whatever. It doesn't really matter game to game, but tonight you really felt his presence on the court. He played like a really balanced game. And one of the major things that I noticed from the Raptors tonight was communication was so much better on defense, offense, both sides. There's 124 comments. I apologize. I'm not really watching the comments go, but plus 23, yes. Um, Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up with these comments here. Um, so I really liked what I saw from Scottie tonight, and those turnarounds. I mean, that if that becomes a staple in his game going forward, I mean, that's really unstoppable, right? We saw him go to it 3 times tonight. One was in the paint where he did a nice little turnaround. It's obvious that this is a shot where there's just so much space created when he takes that shot that there's not really a lot that the defense can do to stop him. And I think he and Jakob are developing this incredible connection, sort of just synergistically. They just play off of each other so naturally. So that's been really good to see. And, absolutely. So, yeah, I agree, man. Wow, Precious didn't even play in a blowout. I agree. Like, all right, let's bring on our first caller. Ishan, what's up, man?
Hey Rob, how's it going?
Not bad. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Rob, I was very happy with today's game. I thought it was one of our better team wins of the season. I felt like everyone contributed, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously was very shocked that Precious Achiuwa did not play at all. I thought even at the end of the game, I thought maybe Nick Nurse would give him some type of burn there instead of Scottie Barnes. I was caught off guard by that, but Christian Koloko played amazing in his minutes today for sure. Um,
Agreed.
Also, what I was also paying attention was the rotations Nick Nurse was using with Pascal Siakam. I
I
I
agree.
thought he did a really good job, and something I noticed or what I felt like was I think he took out Pascal Siakam with about 7 or 8 minutes in the fourth quarter, and
Mm-hmm.
I felt like if OG Anunoby did not pick up his fifth, I thought there was a good chance that Pascal Siakam probably wouldn't have gotten back into the game.
I doubt it.
But or maybe with about like 2 or 3 minutes, I think maybe he would have put in Pascal Siakam if it became a close game. But
Mm-hmm.
I thought if OG Anunoby there didn't get that fifth foul, I thought, man, he was gonna let that five close out there. But for sure, I thought Scottie Barnes played good. He played amazing. This is what I expect from him on a consistent basis, hopefully moving forward. Seeing his growth in the post has been amazing ever since that Lakers game, or ever since the end of the Clippers game. He's been killing it, man. He's been
He
killing it.
has, you know what? Sometimes you just need, sometimes, like, I've been watching a lot of Celtics lately, and some of the body language on that team right now is just so bad. And oftentimes there's a trickle effect when it comes to basketball where one guy starts doing one thing, he starts picking up full court, suddenly everyone's a little bit more engaged, one guy gets a big block, and suddenly everyone's a little bit more dialed in, everyone's more hyped. Scottie just talking smack to the OKC Thunder bench on those
That
turnarounds.
was
I think
amazing.
it was pretty cool to watch, but it also, I think, was his team fed off of that. I think Pascal Siakam going to the rim relentlessly in the first, not settling for jumpers, also set a tone. I think Christian Koloko and Jakob, sort of boxing out and crashing the glass, that also set a tone. So again, like, you have multiple points throughout the game where it started to get away, or maybe OKC Thunder put up like 6-0, 8-0, type of run, or 8-2, and you're sort of like brinking, and maybe you brick a couple shots, and then suddenly somebody does something to bring the energy back. There's again communication. Whenever you see really good teams play, like when you watch the Raptors play in the 18-19 year, constant communication, man. Marc Gasol was so loud, so loud. I sat close to I sat close to the court one time, and I couldn't get his voice out of my head. He's just constantly talking. And if you really slow down the game, and you go and see, like, it's not just Scottie, right? Like on defense, a lot of it is Scottie. Scottie's doing a
Right.
lot of the talking. He's directing guys, and letting
Like the
Gary know
court
where he's supposed to
defense.
be, letting Pascal know where he's supposed to be. And then, the communication continues, right? Because the dialogue has started. So the communication continues. So Fred VanVleet, going towards the bench, he's talking to Scottie. Then Scottie goes and talks to Nick Nurse. Now there's communication there. I think too often this year, there's been a lot of ghosting. Guys just walking past each other after a bad play. Guys just kind of throwing up their arms, looking at each other like, who was supposed to do
I don't
that?
know.
Now
I
there's a
don't know
little
if
bit
you
more
peeped.
communication.
I don't know if you peeped Alvin Williams calling out Pascal Siakam's defense there for letting dudes beat him backdoor. I thought that was really interesting at a point as well in the broadcast.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've been. Well, we're gonna talk about Siakam's defense
He
for sure, because I
he
think he
played
could
pretty.
be. Yeah, he can be a key turnaround. Like the gap between who he could be and who he's been is probably the gap between, the Raptors and the Cavs, right? Like it's a big difference, because like so yesterday I did some soul searching on the Siakam issue, right? I was just like thinking, like, what, whenever someone bothers you this much, whenever you start like getting upset about somebody to some extent, you have to like evaluate, what am I seeing in this person that's pissing me off? Like, where is this coming from? And I
Mhm.
think what it's coming from is, I just think that he can do so much more. I think he could be so much better on the defensive end than he's been the last 2 years specifically. I mean, we're not that far removed. Like when he was with Kawhi in 2018, 2019, I remember talking to a friend of mine and we were looking at just sort of rate adjusted plus minus, and the defensive numbers, and we're like, is he a top 10 defender in the NBA? And neither one of us was that shocked to say, yeah, he definitely is up there. I mean, we were
Maybe
talking about him like, hmm?
I know a lot of star players are good players defensively when they have to pick up a more of a like offensive load. Their defense starts to slip.
I mean,
Maybe
Kawhi has
not at
gone
this
through a
level.
boatload of injuries, right? A
Yeah.
boatload of injuries at this point, and he's carrying a huge offensive load, and there's all that stuff, but his defense hasn't slipped nearly as much as Siakam's has this year.
Yeah.
So I think if the Raptors are serious about turning it around, and now they've won a bunch of games at home now in a row, right? And you just beat two teams that are firmly in the playoff play-in picture in the West at home. You got a couple
Hmm.
games coming up at home. Time's running out. You got 12 games left on the season. This will be the time where, okay, fine, the offense can come and go sometimes with Siakam. There's limits to, sometimes his shot doesn't fall, sometimes he doesn't get calls, sometimes whatever. But if he can consistently do two things: number one, defend his ass off. I don't care about the rebounding, the defensive rebound or whatever. Like, someone's
Yeah.
going to get those boards. There's plenty of size on this team. If he can consistently get like his teammates good looks, and he did tonight, I think to some extent he did try to move the ball as much as he could. To take shots when they're available to you, space the floor as much as you can, even if you're going to shoot like 32, 33%. That's fine. Like, that's fine. I'll
Okay. Yeah.
I'll live with it. Take 6 threes, 5 threes a game. It's perfectly fine. And the third thing is really just guard. Like, guard your man, and be more of a team defender. You're not getting the hardest assignment ever.
No, for sure
Like,
not.
the hardest assignment is always going to OG, and if it's not going to OG, it's going to Scottie. So you're
Let's go,
always going to
Scottie.
have like and you have Jakob there to help you out. So don't be afraid to, I understand, sometimes you can't guard as hard as you want to because you can't afford to pick up fouls if you're the featured guy on offense.
Yeah,
But these aren't just about being fouls. Like you just have to be smart. And I realize sometimes he's gotten into foul trouble early this year, and maybe he's sort of adjusted to say like I don't really know how to, because foul trouble, being in constant foul trouble was a really big thing for Siakam early in his
yeah.
career, and he sort of
There was
figured it
definitely a
out.
stretch this year as well too, where he was just picking up careless fouls, and then it would really hurt our team for sure. So,
Yeah.
um,
Um.
how do you feel about Precious Achiuwa getting benched, and how do you think that like puts his future with the team moving forward?
I don't think this is going to be a full-time thing. I think this might just be a message that Nick Nurse is sending to him. He's been afforded a lot of creative freedom on offense, a lot, right? And
Right.
he's been really inconsistent.
He
And
has been really bad recently. There's no
but I mean,
denying
let's
it.
not forget, we're just less than a month away, less than a month removed, maybe a month-ish
From the
removed
best
from
month of
him.
his career, yeah,
Yeah, one of the better months or one of the better stretches of his career. And
for
granted,
sure.
it wasn't very long; it was pretty short-lived. And you trade for Jakob, and he goes to the bench, and maybe he's a little bit, like, where do I fit into this? And you know, um, look, I think this team's identity has to come at the defensive end. You've obviously put a lot of, let's say, thought into constructing a roster that is heavily, heavily focused on that end, right? The length, the wingspan, the size, switchability, 6'9". You bring in Jakob, he's a defensive guy. Fred VanVleet, two-way guy. Like the whole thing is all predicated on defense. It's a defense first team that's not defending, and that's why they are where they are. I was looking at the sort of team stats throughout the league. Not surprising to see the Raptors were leading the league in steals. Also not surprising to see the Raptors like bottom three, bottom five in 3-point shooting, field goal percentage. Kind of surprising actually, but not too unsurprising given how little they move the ball sometimes, that they're also number one in the league in limiting turnovers. It's quite interesting given how many times, like, I mean, tonight, we had Chris Boucher with that shacked in a fool moment where he just kind of dribbles the ball into the air or something. And, there's so many guys who handle the
Fred
ball for this
VanVleet, yeah.
team. Yeah. And I mean, there's so many young guys on this team and so many guys who handle the ball. So to be limiting turnovers that much, I mean, really, this is a big scheme on limiting, so I think like when the defense clicks, when it connects, when the offense is connected enough, and when the defense is as connected as it was tonight, especially in the second half, this team looks like they could push someone pretty decent in the first half. Sorry, in the first round.
First one.
And again, it just comes down to like how many players in this league are there that if full force, Scottie, Pascal, OG, they just think about it, right? Like those three guys, if they dial up the intensity on defense to full force, and you've got Fred and Jakob as your disruptor and protector, like you really do have a chance to be like God mode on defense. Like the fact that this team is not consistently top 10 in defense is freaking criminal. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I think I had asked you this one of my previous calls before, but if we did match up between, let's say hypothetically, we did get to the set, would you rather play Boston as a two or Philadelphia?
I would rather play Philadelphia. I know this sounds crazy to some people right now because Boston is really faltering, and I looked into, what's happening with Boston, and I think, if the Raptors want to understand themselves, sometimes it might help to look at some of the other teams that are struggling around the league and see why they're struggling. Boston and Atlanta, to some extent, are struggling because of chemistry, number one, and too much isolation ball, number two, right? Guys are holding on to the ball too much. Jason Tatum, he starts doing it, and then Jaylen Brown starts doing it, and now Marcus Smart is out of sorts, and it's sort of weird to watch.
Hello?
To be, Yeah, can you hear me?
Sorry, yeah, sorry, I lost you there for a second.
Yeah, Boston Celtics did this last year too. To start the year, they were pretty bad and they weren't moving the ball. And then Ime Udoka got them to just sort of break out of that crappy habit, right? And play together. And they were great. Like, he got them to commit on defense. He got them to play to their full potential. And yeah, they ran out of gas against a far more experienced team in the finals. But I think the Boston Celtics were really felt unbeatable last year to some
Yeah,
extent. And to start this season, it was like, oh my God, the defense was historic last year. Now the offense is historic. The talent on that team is unfathomable. The depth, the talent, the fit, it all works. The problem is that their default mode is to get selfish. The Celtics
yeah,
just default, they
yeah.
go into my turn, your turn basketball, and that's when the whole thing falls apart. And then you end up losing to like some pretty, I mean, tonight I don't know who won that game. I'm pretty sure Denver pulled it out, but at one point the Pistons were leading the Nuggets. Like,
They
what's
were,
going on in the NBA right now?
they were.
Um, yeah, so so I think the Raptors can sort of say, okay, we haven't had the season that we wanted. We didn't start it the way we wanted to. We didn't coast the way we wanted to. We didn't play the way we wanted to. But our management has made this very big investment and big faith investment in us in giving us the center, Jakob. As he becomes more integrated, I'm realizing more and more the value of having, the playmaker in the center of the court, right? It's
Yeah,
not perfect. Yeah, in an ideal world, yes, you wish that he could shoot. Like,
shoot as well.
it's such a crazy thing to think if the gap between the Raptors being first round fodder and the Raptors being like a legit contender is Jakob not being able to shoot jump shots. Like, to me, it's like if that guy could shoot jump shots, it changes so
Yeah,
freaking
Caperto's
much.
probably like a top five center in the league if he could shoot the three, and
He might
some
be
might.
like, who are your top five centers in the NBA right now?
Uh,
Jokic, Embiid. What else?
I'll have to say Brook Lopez is probably in there.
Yep.
Brook
Who
Lopez
else?
is probably one of the better defenders. Bam, I guess he's considered a five.
Hmm.
Um, Carl Anthony Towns healthy, maybe. I'm not
Yeah.
sure
So
though.
I mean, like, top 10 is, he's firmly top 10 right now. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wish that, he could, because sometimes you'll see a play where, he'll post up and without realizing Scottie will also post up. And now they're like staggering post ups like 6 feet apart. And Fred
I
VanVleet's
really,
almost like doing a double take. Like, what the fuck is happening here?
I
So
really
it's a
have
little
no
bit,
clue how Pirtle and Barnes have been working so well off of each other. Like on paper, you would think that they would be terrible together, or not
they're
terrible,
good
but like,
together. If the other three guys clear out, they're fine because they can both finish at the rim. That's the number one thing. Like, you need scorers to work together in a pick and roll, right?
yeah,
And if one and smart guys, together, typically they know how to play off each other because number one, like, so many times you'll see someone set a pick and then they roll too early, or they're not a good they're not a good target. They stop short. They don't react quickly with the basketball, or they don't have a scoring opportunity and then they can't pass out of that situation. So, even though Draymond is not a great scorer necessarily, he's such a good pick and roll partner for just about any guy who can shoot. But also sometimes even guys who can't shoot. So even like an Andrew Wiggins, when he's handling the ball, Draymond's a good pick and roll partner for him, right?
yeah.
So I just think guys who are smart make really good rollers, especially guys who can play make out of those positions. So yeah, I mean, he's been decent. Um, yeah. Anyway, man, thanks a
Sure.
lot for calling in.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Yeah,
Take
cheers.
care.
Cheers. We don't have any more callers lined up. I guess everyone's just processing this, so feel free to call in if you would like. I'll post the link right here. Um, so I was reading an article about Pascal Siakam, and I thought it was very interesting, and it had me reflecting sort of on my thoughts on Siakam. And basically, the context of the article was, and it was written a long time ago. It was written 2 years ago, and it was about the concept of upside potential and how we tend to undervalue the present and overvalue the future, right? Because the future is full of hope, potential. The truth is, no matter how hyped we are about what Scottie can be, what OG might be, what, Koloko might be, like, for me, none of these things are certain, right? And I'm only reminded now of the hope that we had for Pascal Siakam potentially like 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, what he might aspire to. So I think there's sort of psychological trick there in terms of how we may sometimes value the unknown far more than the known just because we assign a certain value. Like there's a quote that the minute a draft pick is made, the value goes down. It's like a car being driven off the lot. It's no longer new. And I promise this is not just me segueing into our sponsor, QAG. Shout outs to QAG. Car driving off the lot. Whoa, that was smooth. I'm gonna have to tell them about that one. I will talk about our sponsor at some point for sure. Um, but yeah, like I thought it was really interesting to sort of evaluate what is he? What is he? Like why am I so upset about this? Why am I so firmly against running an offense through a guy who's two-time All NBA and multiple time All-Star now and genuinely trying to do his best. And I think it comes down to sort of understanding the trajectory of a Pascal Siakam, right? Understanding the limits, the potential, what he can be, what he can do. I addressed it in the last live that I feel like he has maximized, pretty much juiced out all the potential that he had. But it is interesting to sort of realize that in spurts, he has flashed so much more. Um, there have been real spurts when Kawhi was here where he looked like he was going to become like Scottie Pippen, like that type of player. Scottie Pippen meshed with like, I don't know, Lamar Odom-esque Scottie Pippen. It was such a great thing. Um, there have been moments where he's gone an entire month where he's like in that 5.5 to 6 box plus minus range, and you're like, oh my god, like this offense is crazy. Like he's had an entire year where he shot 37% from the three. So we've seen the defense in a setting, and we've seen the shooting. We've seen a big playoff performance. We've also seen a complete playoff meltdown. We've seen him be 26, 27% usage and be really good. We've also seen him be 26, 27% usage and be really terrible. And the runway of hope and potential of what this could be is running out. I wonder how much differently we would all probably feel about Pascal Siakam's season if someone just randomly told us he was actually 24 years old right now. But it's when we start thinking that he's 28 and all of the connotations of what that means, right? To put into context, there's something that I was thinking about yesterday is box plus minus, right? Or a stat often referred to as the holy grail or the one metric stat to measure impact. And believe me, it is very accurate. It is stupidly accurate when you start seeing stars like Kobe Bryant and like you'll see them put up like 30 points per game in one year, and then they'll have like a bit of a fall off and you'll see them put 29 points per game like 3 years later, but somehow the team is way worse. And we try to wrap our minds around it. Okay, like okay, he's shooting 2% worse in the field, and his defense has slipped a little bit. But how do you quantify all of that? And then you see the actual gap, and it's like, oh, that's like 7.8 box plus minus season, and like a 2.6 box plus minus season. That's a really big gap. 2.5 where Siakam is right now. Just to put this into like a fair context, Vince Carter, 1999 rookie year, was not at 2.5. He was above that. He sustained that right through till 2007, which is pretty much his entire peak, was above that number, 2.5. Chris Webber, who was not anyone's idea of a top five player in the NBA, but a hell of a talent and multiple time All-Star and a former first overall pick, he managed to maintain that for 10 years from rookie season to the cusp of his, before injuries took him over, with all except for 1 year, and I believe it was the lockout shortened year. Gary Payton, 1993 till 2003. I think the year that he joined Milwaukee and then eventually the Los Angeles Lakers, consistently above 2.5. So have we seen an upper limit with Siakam where we're saying, okay, it's going to be this or worse from here on out, and what is this? And could this, if scaled back, if Scottie can become what we hope he can become, could this be it? Like, could this be a guy who can thrive in that option? I'm be honest, I'm just not trying to, get anyone angry here. I'm seeing a lot of Tobias Harris, man. Rashard Lewis, Tobias Harris level trajectory on his next contract. And it's got me a little bit spooked. But I realized that the highs for him from NBA champion, most improved player, all of that, the athletic upside, the way that he attacks sometimes his big games, he's flashed an upside that's higher than those guys. So I am cautiously hopeful that he will continue, that he will buy in on defense. But I genuinely believe that if he can come back to form, not as a top 10 defender, if he can just get back to not being the worst defender in the starting lineup, if he can just get back to being a top 25, top 30 defender in the NBA, if he can just become that guy, he doesn't have to be OG. He doesn't have to be OG. He doesn't have to be that good. He doesn't have to be Jakob. He doesn't. If he can just stop giving up so much at the rim, if he can stop like late contests getting lost, in schemes, if he can just dial in a little bit more on that end. And I realize in order for him to do that, the offense is going to have to be a little more balanced. Tonight, I saw shades of the Atlanta Hawks, the old Atlanta Hawks, Al Horford, Kyle Korver, Joe Johnson, that Atlanta Hawks team. In the absence of a true superstar, you must lean into egalitarian basketball. There's no shade on that. There's no shame in it. It is accepting reality. The Detroit Pistons played that way. Chauncey Billups did not, jack up 500 shots a night. Didn't need to, right? You play balanced, you can win. If defense is all right, balanced offense can take you as long as you have a closer. And the Raptors still have to identify who their closer is. Maybe it's going to be Scottie. Maybe it's going to be Gary. Those are the two guys that I think have, potential in that department. But yeah, it's a lot of pieces that sometimes don't fit together. But tonight I saw those pieces fit a little bit better together without Precious Achiuwa. And I am for Precious Achiuwa getting minutes, so I'm kind of in a conundrum now where I'm not sure where I stand on this. But anyway, let's get to Daryl. Daryl, what's up, man? Thanks for holding on as I ranted about Siakam. What's up?
No, that was interesting. And while I was waiting, I was just going through the box plus minus stats, and yeah, it's an interesting list. But anyway, yeah, I want to talk about really now. Hang on a sec.
That's funny.
All right, yeah, that was weird. So yeah, the game. Let's talk about the game.
Mm-hmm.
So not all wins are equal, and I like this win. I have some good reasons for why I like this win.
Sure.
Sure. So first thing I want to talk about is assists.
Mm-hmm.
And I know not all assists are equal either. And I found that in this game, I felt a lot of the assists were much, much better, noticeably better than in previous games. And I think the thing that stands out to me is that the players that have gravity use that gravity to create space for their teammates. And then the key point here is that they found those teammates that they created the space for to create high percentage shots.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that explains Gary's production off the bench today. He had high percentage shots that were created by Siakam and Van Vliet. It was really nice to see. And it's not the same as in the past where Siakam and Van Vliet have been hunting their shot. And then at the last minute when they are swarmed by defenders or they just can't get that shot off and they'll desperately throw it out to the perimeter, and then they might rack up some assists or they might not.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just nice to see, especially Siakam's 8 assists. I know that's just a box score stat, but I just got to say that his 8 assists tonight were probably better than any of his 8 assist games this season. So I was really encouraged by that.
Yeah, I thought he moved the ball well. I liked the fact that he took threes in rhythm. It's such an important part, and he's shown potential of being able to do that. Jakob was asked about it in a pregame scrum, I think yesterday, and he was like, at least 4 of the guys can make a three, right? And he was a little self-deprecating humor there on his part, but I appreciated it, and he's right. Like Scottie and Pascal can make threes, and ideally, in an ideal world, they will make threes at a much better rate. This entire fit question only arises because those two guys don't hit threes consistently, right? But if they can hit threes consistently, then this is a pretty good starting lineup to go forward with.
I also was really encouraged by another thing that I posted about in the Facebook group already. Something has changed. Something has changed with this team in that players are finding Scottie in ways that they weren't before. They're looking for him now. Like they're
They are.
passing him. They're passing him the ball at the point of attack, in the shot clock, where it's like they're looking for him to make the play. They're looking for him to do something with it, and that there's a trickle down effect. It's like, how frustrating has it been to watch OG stand in the corner wide open and not get a pass from anybody? What's happening is Fred is finding Scottie early enough. Scottie is, of course, he sees where everybody is on the court and he's finding OG. It is not an accident that OG is just shooting lights out these last few games. It's not an accident that Scottie is dominating. It's not an accident that the Raptors are winning. There's a trickle down effect to all of this. And it's just so much better to see than all of that ISO ball and then desperate kickouts at the last second. It's like 1,000 pounds off my shoulders to watch the game today.
Yeah, it was good to see, and it was really good to see the Raptors not shoot themselves in the foot in the fourth quarter. That was good, man. I mean, can you imagine if I had held on to that honest trailer any longer? I would get flamed so hard for trying to release it right now because like
That,
everything is not
yeah,
true anymore. But you know, there's a part of me that is just like, I hope someone showed it to them and they all had a laugh, but it was kind of like it's kind of right because it's not right anymore, right? Like a lot of what was mentioned there from the insistence on, like I've noticed a couple of times now where Siakam's just not pressing as much anymore, right? Like
yeah,
he started out trying to get to the rim. I think that's a good intention. He got fouled. It was good. It's good to establish that early on, to sort of yeah, it's just good to establish that direction with the referees early, especially with all the storyline of the referees coming into this game. And then, yeah, I mean, if there's one thing I would be a little bit critical of, it's the Raptors just paid way too much attention to the refs today, man. There was still too much bitching and complaining, and it's not warranted. I just want to say that, like, the stuff that I was reading about Ben Taylor today, it's so sad because I am reminded that this is just a human being trying to do his job. And yeah, he reminds me at times of a WWE villain with the way that he,
yeah,
talks to the camera. He's just like he really is like a WWE heel. And I understand that he's got what I call punchable face syndrome, right? I mean, I'm just being honest. Like he's kind of got it, right? He's got that look of that douche, right? But again, like yo, like I went back and I really watched games where he's refereed, and I'm trying to see like if he's showing up players or if he's being overly demonstrative or if he's not talking to, if he's not giving explanations, and I didn't see any of that. In fact, I watched
yeah.
the specific text that Fred VanVleet was upset about. Man, that's just, I mean, in my
Yeah.
opinion, the guy's doing a good job. I think he's one of the better referees in the NBA. And to see, some fan on a Facebook group saying, I want to toss feces at him or something like that, I was just like, bro, like, you're angry. This guy's an outlet for you to be angry. And then you got fans at the ACC who are booing the guy. It's not necessary. It creates
No,
hostility. Referees are human beings, and you don't want this guy in the back of his head to be fearful in situations, because when
that's
people are
right.
fearful, they go into fight or flight, and he might end up tossing you out in a play-in game. Like, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you don't even want that to be the storyline. Do you know what I mean? Like, because
He's
now it's in your head too, right? You see him, and every single time you see him, you're playing 6-on-5. Do you know
That's
what I
it.
mean?
And this is like, these kinds of things, they don't go away. They don't go away. He's going to remember this forever. I'm sure he's a professional. You could tell this game that he was trying to be a professional, obviously. And I mean, refs make mistakes, but can you imagine that if every time an NBA player missed a jump shot, I mean, that's a mistake technically. That's a missed jump shot for a player is like a missed call for a ref in a way, kind of. So it's like
Yeah.
you got to go in expecting that refs are not going to be perfect. Obviously, we want them to do the best they can, but like the criticism that he's faced is not warranted. He should be criticized like a player who has a bad shooting night. Let's just say, instead of like, nobody is saying like when Gary Trent Jr. shoots 3 for 15, nobody's gonna toss feces at him. Like we might say, hey, he should be benched, but nobody's gonna talk about that.
I think I think it's just the concept of false consciousness, right? You channel your frustration in a direction that feels like probably a little bit more palatable, and I want fans to be honest with themselves. The Raptors got a very favorable whistle tonight. Yes, you can overhone in on the no call on Christian Koloko, Jalen Williams, that dunk, and I can agree that there have been times this season where I have seen that be an automatic flagrant, right? And you can harp on that, but man, there were so many calls tonight where Shai went to the Scottie fouled Shai on the fast break. Shai goes to the basket, makes the shot, and I swear to God, what was the most hilarious thing? They both looked at the referee like, "What?" That was hilarious because they were
Yeah,
both looking for the foul
yeah,
and they didn't call it because Scottie was probably
yeah.
trying to foul him so that he couldn't score.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's hilarious. Like if you sit really close to an NBA game, like if we were to put a sensor, and this is just to any fan out there who maybe hasn't thought of it this way, if you were to put a sensor on the body like of a star player, like a Joel Embiid or a Nikola Jokic or Shaq in his prime or shit, anyone like Doncic, you know, put a sensor on those guys, count up how many times they're fouled a game. Star players are fouled maybe 40 to 50 times a game.
Yeah,
40 to
every
50
single,
times a
like
game.
multiple times of possession.
If
Exactly.
a ref wanted to go by the letter of the law, like they could easily foul out an entire team, easily. Like you wouldn't be able to touch a guy, and and then and the thing that I think we all want from referees is consistency. So if you're going to call it one way, call it the other way. And if you're not going to call it in the first, then don't call it in the fourth, Don't wait for things to go in and then call it late when it misses, that kind of thing. And I think it's hard because they are aware that they are part of a business, that they are also not, especially when they're on the road and the home team is losing, especially when the home team is having a tough season, like they're going to be like booed out of the arena, and it does not make anything better when Nick Nurse and it's one thing to go privately and talk to these refs. It's another thing to just be showing them up like this. And one of the things that I really appreciated about Scottie in summer league was that he went and he made a conscious effort in summer league to go and shake all the referees' hands,
I remember
and I
that
really
he was like
liked that.
dapping them up, and it was, yeah,
He
he was
dapped
like,
them up, and I
he
really
did.
liked that about him. And I hope he doesn't lose who he is, because that's who he is. Like he's a person who cares about other people. He's not like a whiny baby. Like he's a very animated he's a very animated player who wears his heart on his sleeve, but typically, I mean, granted I haven't seen him lose a lot in AAU in high school, so he wasn't necessarily complaining about calls as much. But typically I saw this channel all of this energy and frustration and hype and animosity being channeled towards his opponent, not the referees. And I understand that he's probably frustrated with the season he's having, and so maybe but I hope he doesn't develop a reputation,
Yeah,
because it's
no,
it's tough to
absolutely.
shake. It's tough to
Yeah,
shake. Referees talk, and you don't want to develop a poor reputation with a referee. And I know this sounds very cowardly of me to say it this way, but it's just true. You don't want to be in a situation where you have a ref who just doesn't like you.
I mean, Kyle Lowry and Tony Brothers. I mean, they've had
Yes.
Chris Paul and what's his name? That the guy who tossed Scottie. What's his name?
Oh, Scott Foster.
Yeah, Scott Foster. Thank you. Yeah. Exactly. Like you get a reputation. These players and refs. It's like it's a personal thing. Whether you try to maintain a professional attitude about it or not, it is a personal thing. It's absolutely a personal thing, and it has an effect on the outcome of games. You don't want that.
Yeah, someone's saying Tim Donaghy would bet on games that he ref, never trust the refs, never will. Look, honestly, Toronto 63-93, judging an entire group of people by one person. Like I've met referees, and I gotta tell you, like you'd be surprised how funny, how affable, and how genuinely like passionate they are about basketball and trying to do a good job, right? Like it sort of bothers me sometimes when people, especially female referees, like people used to get so angry at Violet Palmer or gosh, the who is Lauren Holtkamp? There was another one, the lady she's a little bit younger, but she's got like the sort of the teeth, man. I'm forgetting her name, but man, whenever people put up, and it was in Toronto actually, that she made a call. It was really controversial, and then for the next time she would ref a game, everyone would post a picture of her and be like, "Guess who's refing our game?" And everyone would get so nasty with her.
Natalie Sago, right?
Natalie Sago, there we go.
Yeah,
And
Sago.
like you listen to Natalie Sago's entire story of how she became a referee. Her father was a referee. She would join him. She refed in the WNBA. I mean, she's worked so hard to get to this point. It's a completely boys' league, right? More than 80% of referees are referees are men. All the players are men. All the coaches are men. You've got these women who are often getting booed by a crowd, which is often 70+% men. A little compassion wouldn't kill us, right? I'm not saying, if a ref makes a bad call and it's a female ref, or, if it's an older ref, or like whatever. I'm just saying these guys are human beings. Try to keep that into perspective. Keep that in perspective when you start like saying like, oh, fuck this guy, whatever. Like they don't make enough money for you to be like treating them like this. You know what I mean? Like they really don't. Anyway,
Absolutely. As a teacher, I mean, I have to be a referee in the classroom a lot of times, and it's not an easy job.
Rue's saying women have their own league.
No, no.
I get what you're saying, but honestly, like refereeing should not be a gender thing. Like for me, it really shouldn't be. And like, I mean, have I ever talked about the fact that I like the WNBA? Have I ever mentioned that? No, I don't think I've ever mentioned that. Kelsey Plum, one of my favorite players. Candace Parker, one of my favorite players. Like, I watched Lisa Leslie. I was excited when the WNBA came around. I've never clowned the WNBA for a day in my life. I admired the hell out of the female basketball players that I knew growing up. And if you're a real hooper and you joke about women playing basketball, like, no. I have never met a positively aligned human being. Like, you talk to Brian about like female basketball players, there's not one hint of condescension. Not one. And to all of you people like who, and I'm not trying to like get at people, but to anyone out there who wants to clown about women in the NBA or whatever, and you want to say rest in peace Mamba, chill. That was literally like the next stage of his life. One of the biggest things that he was trying to champion was women in the game, and largely it was so that his daughter would have a clearer pathway, and a better future for her.
100%. And actually, my respect for women basketball players goes all the way back to junior high when I was playing basketball. And probably the worst time that I've ever been blocked, I was blocked by this girl. And
Yeah.
I mean, I was clowned about it for years after that. Like my buddies were clowning me for years about that. And it's not just because she was a woman, but just because being blocked that badly by anybody, you get clowned about it for years. So no, man, I hear you about that. All respect.
I
all
remember
respect goes
I
to
remember
girls.
my ex-girlfriend. She was starting point guard for her basketball team, and prior to her game, it was like a big game. She played me one-on-one, and I did not go easy on her at all. I'd never go easy, so I blocked her like 7, 8 times. It was sort of funny. And then I was like, I'm just getting you prepared, because the girl that she was going up against, like on the other team, she was great. That girl, I will never forget her stat line. She finished the game with 36 points, 18 rebounds, and 14 blocks. 14 fucking blocks, yo. This girl was like, it was crazy to watch. No, honestly, like, anyways, thanks a lot, Daryl, for calling in. Really appreciate
Yep.
it, as
Anytime.
always. And I'm
Anytime.
glad that your eyes didn't bleed in this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I felt good.
Yeah.
All right, man.
All right.
On to the
Cheers.
next one.
Cheers. RoRo, what's up?
Hey, Rob, good job on the broadcast.
Thank you.
So I want to jump right into it. So I want to talk about Yak. So I
Yak.
think whether you agree with the trade or not, the reality is the Raptors are really invested in him for the future.
Sure.
And I think, in my opinion, our three core moving forward are Yak, Scottie, and OG. That's just how I feel. Because they play defense. They don't complain to the refs as much, by the way. I think if we think about it.
Scottie complains a lot, bro.
I mean, but I think the thing about Scottie is I think he feeds off Siakam and Van Fleet, because he didn't used to complain as much in the first season.
Yeah, he should.
But I want to zero in on Yak for a second. So
sure.
The big question is, he can't shoot threes. He defends, he passes, he has high
Bro, it's
IQ,
not even that
he
he can't shoot
rebounds.
threes. He can't shoot from anywhere outside 14 feet, 13,
So
12
here's
feet,
so
11 feet.
here's so here's the hypothetical that I want to make, because people were talking about Brook Lopez, and I looked him up, and I know that if you want to judge a
Oh,
player's
no.
potential to shoot threes, you look at their free throw percentage, and he's always been a good free throw shooter. But he never shot threes until his ninth season in the league. If you
Oh,
look it up,
no.
he shot zero. My question is, if we're gonna invest in Yak, do we see any chance of developing him into even like a 30% 3-point shooter, just to like, do we even try it, or do we just accept that he will never shoot?
I don't want to say never. Never is, I mean, who the hell's to say what he can and cannot do? I'm going to tell you, though, as a very big Brook Lopez fan, very big, he was always a good shooter. Always. I watched this guy when he was 19 years old, 20 years old. He was always a good shooter. When you watch him in practice, he would actually be able to make a few threes. He was hitting shots from 20 feet, 21 feet. He could hit shots from college three range. He's always been a good shooter. Brother Robin, shout out to Robin, not so much. And their careers have gone as aligned as indicated. Brook coming out to three was just a natural progression of the game. Honestly, it's like Rashid. Rashid didn't shoot threes that much at North Carolina. He started coming to the NBA, shooting more and more and more threes, eventually became a stretch big, right? That shooting potential was always there. If Chris Bosh, like for instance, Chris Bosh, how many threes did Chris Bosh take as a rookie? Not that many, right? I remember a few, but not that many. But as he went forward, he became more and more, a 3-point shooter. Same thing with Kevin Love. Like that was always a part of his game, but he was more a post guy. Then he became a three guy. So Jakob and Brook Lopez are not very comparable in my opinion. No.
But do you think then you don't even try, or do you try to
You
develop
can
some kind of
try.
shot out of him?
You can try, but it's like, but it's like at some point someone has like it's very difficult to turn someone into from a complete non-shooter into a shooter. Now, okay, he shot 8 for 10 from the free throw line today, right? Which means that if he just shot free throws in the game because no one is guarding him, he'd get 2 points, right? So maybe we can slowly work on, Jakob Pertl potentially being a guy who can drop, a 16-foot jump shot at some point. Because if you can hit a free throw, it's not like his free throws aren't pretty, but he's not shooting them underhanded. It's not like Jeremy Sohan or something, it's not that bad. It's just and look, I listened to somebody once say that when he was doing pre-draft work that he was actually, capable of hitting outside shots at that point. So I don't want to say never. It's very difficult to imagine him just splashing threes, but maybe it's something that the Raptors should consider. Yeah.
So then let's look at the opposite situation. Let's assume he never gets a three and he never improves his free throw shooting. Do you see him as part of a future competitive, core for this team?
Sure. Maybe not as big a part of the future as some other guys. Maybe, he grows into a big off the bench. What a luxury that would be to have a playmaking big off the bench that you can just run a whole bunch of guys off of. I mean, really, the difference tonight between winning and losing, if you just traded Jakob Pertl at halftime, they win. Like if you gave them Jakob Pertl at halftime is what I'm trying to say, right? If you just gave them Jakob Pertl and you said, here's a big who can rebound, defend at the rim, who can play make for Shai and Jalen Williams or whatever, they win this game going away. He swings it completely in the other direction. You win by 18, you flip him on the other team, you probably lose by 10. That's a big gap. It's a big difference, to be able to do that for a second unit someday, that's great. I think he's going to age great. His game is not reliant on athleticism. It's reliant on intelligence, and those type of players tend to age pretty well. So provided you can sign him up to a reasonable contract, I have no issues signing him to a 3-4 year contract. The issue becomes, if you have nothing behind him when the matchup dictates, because if another team goes small, he's not quick enough to be guarding the center. Like, look, in the playoffs, things get exposed. Things do get exposed at a level that they may not in the regular season. We saw it year after year with DeMar and Kyle, right? They would beast in the regular season. You get into a 7-game series, that team scouts you aggressively. They take away things that you aggressively, like to do, and maybe make you do some things you don't want to do. And they really start to hone in on DeMar DeRozan being a defensive liability, and suddenly you're cooked, right? If a team really, really, really wanted to scheme you out of Jakob Poeltl, I don't think there's any amount of offensive rebounds he can do, that he can grab, or any amount of passes he can make to offset the impact of a team going like small enough. Like if the Bucks ran Giannis at the 5, right, and then they just put shooters around, like I don't like Jakob in that lineup. Who's he supposed to guard? Do you know what I mean? He's supposed to guard Giannis,
But I mean, no one can guard Giannis.
But as a primary, like, where do you put him? Where do you station him? Because if he's not near the basket, you lose all that rim protection stuff. If he's guarding on the perimeter, he's not quite fast enough. I mean, he's reasonable, recovering.
That's so weird about him, is like he seems to struggle guarding the perimeter, but when I see him in motion, I'm like, he looks so light
He's
on
nimble.
his feet. He looks so
He's
mobile.
nimble.
Exactly.
Yeah, he is nimble, and he used to be a little bit better. And maybe he can get some of it back. Maybe. I mean, people don't grow linearly, right? Like there are guys who have ups and downs defensively, offensively. It's not, oh, it started to dip, so it's all the way down from here. Sometimes it gets better. Um, I think he's all that's one of his biggest attributes ever since he was at Utah. In college, like he's been very light on his feet. His lateral quickness for a guy his size, his coordination has always been awesome. His length has always been plus. His intelligence has always been plus. And right now, you're just seeing like a very fully baked version of what we were seeing brewing, in 2018. Yeah.
The other thing that I've been thinking about is, I think you kind of mentioned this earlier, was when you think about the Kawhi Raptors and the roles that Van Fleet and Siakam played at that time. Van Fleet was basically our off guard. He was playing 2 guard, mostly off the ball, and Siakam was basically playing the Scottie Pippen role. All defense, cutting a lot, shooting occasionally. And I feel like in a bubble, if they were just able to,
is that what you think Scottie Pippen's role was with the Bulls?
I mean, he was
a hell of a lot more than that,
but I
man.
mean, I guess maybe not Scottie Pippen, but he was like,
I get what you're saying. Like, I mean, but I'm just saying, like, the way you described it, like, I get the Pippen comp. I mean, a lot of really smart people made that comp at the time. I just, like, when you describe it as, like, kind of an off-ball cutter, I think Pippen was more of a on-ball playmaker, secondary connector, and also a slashing wing and a hell of an offensive talent. One of the 50 greatest players of all time.
Obviously, you're right. Siakam's not.
And honestly, you want my hot take of the day? There were a couple of years there where I think he was a better defender than Michael Jordan. I think he was the best defender in the NBA for a couple of years there.
Who, Siakam?
No, Scottie Pippen.
Oh, Scottie Pippen. Oh, yeah.
Yo, wow.
No. Yeah.
Crazy.
I don't think that's a hot take at all to say that Scottie Pippen was a better defender than Michael Jordan. But
couple of years. I mean, Jordan was a hell of a defender otherwise, but yeah.
Yeah, obviously. But the thing I wanted to ask you was, I just feel like if Van Fleet and Siakam were still in the roles they were in 2019, this team would be better. Like they would be.
Yeah, but you don't have.
They wouldn't be better than the Kawhi year, but I feel like
Kawhi?
this team would be more in the mode of. I'm saying they wouldn't be as good as they were in 2019. Like if Siakam and Van Fleet reverted to who they were back then, but I think we would be better than we are now, and I feel like this team would be more of like winning by committee, a la Pistons, because the problem is like they felt like, oh, we're the next guys, and they're doing more than I think they should be doing. And you look at a guy like OG, he kind of hasn't changed. He's still doing all the great things he was doing before, and he's not. I mean, I don't know if he's whining behind the scenes, but I really respect that he's like, I know what my game is. I know how to help this team, and I don't need to take 20 shots, to prove myself. I know my worth. And it's funny that I think if you were to offer Siakam, Van Fleet, and OG to all 29 other
Sorry,
teams,
I'm just gonna
everybody
have
would
to
take OG.
I'm gonna have to positively correct this
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's happened a few times. It's Van Vliet, not Van Fleet.
Sorry,
People
Van
say
Fleet,
Van
Van Fleet.
Fleet a lot, and I don't know where
Right.
it comes from, but he's expressed at times to having been bothered by it, so I'm just gonna correct it. Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I stand corrected.
the grander context of your point makes sense. Look, but when a guy goes, people tend to move up, right? Like it's not like when Michael Jordan retired that Pippen didn't step into a bigger role. It's not like that role went to Luke Longley or someone else. It's like it obviously it's a
But
natural
Pippen wasn't
progression.
like Pippen wasn't like he wasn't suddenly shooting 30 shots a game or like 25 shots a game. He
His
was
shot
like,
attempts went up. Yeah, they
I
did
mean,
go
for
up a
sure they
lot.
went up,
I
but
mean,
but
he was All-Star MVP. You know that year
for sure.
when
But he
Jordan
wasn't
retired.
like I don't
Like
think that Pippen
Pippen
was
was
like
firmly in top
right.
five conversations for the like people really. How long you been an NBA fan? I'm just kind of curious.
I've been a fan for like 10 years, but the thing about Pippen
10
though
years.
is
Okay. So Pippen and Jordan, this is a little bit probably before when you started watching basketball, right? And I think
I mean, I
it's
was too young to watch them play when they were
how old are
playing in the
you?
90s. I'm 32.
Okay, you're 32.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm 35, turning 36 this year. But yeah, like for me, Pippen was a part of two of my favorite teams all time. One, the Chicago Bulls. Number two, the Portland Trail Blazers. And in both instances, like he's such a good player. But there was a certain limit to what he could do, and it was like when he was asked to be the number one guy, like it was it was difficult for him to do it, but it's also difficult for me to say he wasn't one of the top five, six players in the NBA that year. Like he
But
really
he did it
was.
his way. He didn't do it by trying to be Jordan. He wasn't like, okay, now I'm going to average 30 points. I think
Pascal's
the year Jordan left, I think Pippen still averaged like closer to 20 points a game, maybe 22. He wasn't like up to 28, 29 points a game. I'm pretty sure. And
we do this
yeah,
once at least every single show where
yeah,
someone is genuinely shocked by the
yeah.
numbers that come back. And you're not wrong. Like the year that Jordan retired, he was at 22 points per game, and the year before he was at 18. So it's
Yeah.
not like it went up crazy, but his shot attempts went up by one. Believe it or
But I'm
not, he was actually
complimenting. I'm complimenting Pippen. My point is like when Kawhi left, I feel like Siakam was like, now it's my time to average 25, 27 points a game. And it's like I wish he was more like I can be the number one guy, but I can do it differently by defending, locking people down,
Do
more
you agree that
rebounds,
it's
more
different?
assists.
That it's different for Pippen, who was like well into his prime already, and already a veteran, already a three-time NBA champion.
Sure, sure.
And Siakam, who is 24 years old, and also it comes down to coaching. Um, Phil Jackson, the triangle, everything that they were building up there. I mean, Pippen was naturally a very selfless player. He was also one of the smartest players in the NBA. Not something I can say about Pascal Siakam. So, when we compare Pippen and Siakam, there's the obvious, they're lengthy, wingish, bigger defender, type of guys who are thriving in secondary roles next to Jordan-esque offensive engines like Kawhi and Michael Jordan. But that's where it sort of stops because I watched Scottie Pippen play, and I got to tell you, throughout the 90s, probably the smartest player I watched play basketball was Scottie Pippen. Arvydas Sabonis, Scottie Pippen, shit, who else? I mean, MJ was pretty smart, but like there were like six guys that you would watch and you'd be like, holy shit, they see everything. Scottie Pippen was one of those guys. Siakam is not one of those guys. So self-awareness, number one, number two. So yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. Yes,
Yeah.
this team I think would be better off if Siakam leaned more into, staying sort of the secondary option, even if he still ends up being like the number one shot attempts guy by default. like still playing more in that egalitarian role. I think there are a lot of guys who've thrived in that. Chauncey Billups was, the primary option on a team that felt pretty egalitarian. Some nights it was Sheed's night, some night it was Rip's night, some night it was. I think we got to play more that way. I'm glad that as the season has gone on, it feels like the narrative around the team, especially from the people who call the team every night, seems to be leaning more in that direction, that it could be anyone's night. And I think that that's the where you can go. You can still say that Siakam's the best player on the team, and you can still say he's the lone All NBA guy. Um, but there's no need for all that top five chatter. No need for, oh, he's got to get the ball. And this, no, he doesn't. He doesn't have to get the ball. Just like Pippen didn't need to get the ball. There was a balance. That was a balanced team, right? So anyway, bro, I appreciate you calling in, man.
Yeah,
This is your first time calling in?
Yeah, first time.
Nice. Thanks a lot, man. Cheers.
No worries.
Cheers. Next up we have Playin For What, and then we have Mario. Playin For What, what's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. Yeah.
All right. First one, probably disagree with me. I do think Scottie Pippen was a career-wise better defender than Michael Jordan, even though I still think Michael Jordan's a GOAT. But you can agree to disagree.
Okay.
You can tell me what you think about that if you want, but the one thing I wanted to focus was on Yak, because I don't think Yak needs to shoot, period.
Okay.
Primarily, I mean, we've kind of seen it today. Like, if people decide to drop and Yak, completely sag off him, I mean, he sets great picks, he sets great screens. If we had anybody else besides Fred, and we see this, like, Fred's finally hitting threes, if we had any movement shooter, it would be so dangerously stupid to sag off Yak, because we could have any movement shooter come off a screen or double stack, whatever we need to do. Any competent offensive coach could throw up a play, and we would be punishing their defense like crazy. Like the Kings do this. Any team that has a smart playmaker or defender at the big man do this. The Warriors do this, and we would honestly, considering we already have Gary, we would probably only replace Fred with one or two movement shooters. Seth Curry would be ideal. Would we do it this offseason? Probably not. But personally, for me,
you said Seth Curry, right?
Yeah, Seth Curry. Yeah,
confirming that. Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, we're not getting Steph.
Look, I've been very firmly for a movement shooter, and I think that would help a lot. I was actually I polled on Instagram. If you don't follow Pensari Basketball on Instagram, you're missing out. We talk about totally different stuff, but I polled everyone on who was the ideal mate, like ideal running mate for Scottie Barnes, and it was between four players. It was Scoot, Brandon Miller, Victor Wembanyama, and Trey Murphy the third.
Yeah.
And a lot of people went for Wembanyama, and I'm not surprised. But I think
enough.
a guy like Scoot, or a guy like there's a natural dynamicism that comes into guards and big wings playing together, guys who are different playing together. It can create interesting opportunities.
Exactly, I agree.
I was looking at Scottie and Pascal's sort of strengths and weaknesses, and to Scottie's most ardent supporters and Siakam's most ardent supporters, these players are not similar at all. And if you listen to this channel, you'd be like, well, Rob really, really likes one of these guys and he shits on the other guy all the time, so they must be very dissimilar. They're actually very similar players. They're very similar players. They have very almost identical strengths and weaknesses. The difference, obviously, is one of them is 21 and the other one's 28. That's really the big central difference. Is upside versus, downside, really. And I think that sometimes when you have guys who are too similar, I compare, the quote that I put on Instagram was, it's peanut butter and jelly, not peanut butter and almond butter.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's redundancy. Like, you can't have two people playing the exact same role on the court. You're just...
Exactly. And so tonight when we saw, when you see the best of Scottie, right, when he's beasting, where are shots coming from, right? The best of Scottie is coming as a big playmaker in the post, beasting on guys, getting in the middle of the floor. That same area of the court is exactly what Jakob needs. Is the same thing that Pascal needs. These guys, they all need the same area of the court to succeed, and they all do virtually the same shit from there. They score from there, or they play make from there. They're not different. Like, Naz Reid is different. He's different. He's a different type of player. Karl Towns is a different type of player. Trey Murphy is a different type of player. Siakam and Siakam and Barnes, it's like you got a prototype, and Precious Achiuwa is not that different either. You look at Precious Achiuwa, what's the weakness? It's the same shit. He's a plus size guy who's got switching ability on defense. I mean, he's a little bit different in the sense that he really is not a good playmaker at all. But again, like, I understood Vision 6-9 conceptually in terms of transition defense. And even in terms of half-court defense, there's a lot of brilliance to it. But in terms of offense, like, the whole point is to generate mismatches. If everyone's the same, then your offensive like maturity needs to be like top notch. Like, you need to be so on point in terms of your unselfishness. You have to dial it up and just say, okay, we are always going to be looking for the right opportunity. So, we have 3 guys. No other team can guard these 3 guys all at once. We're always going to look for the guy with the mismatch. Too often the Raptors don't do that, and I think that's where the problem is. But yeah, like to the larger point of what you're making with Jakob being able to shred the floor with movement shooters, I agree. And if eventually the role for him will be like a playmaking big for the bench, and you can somehow find movement shooters for that bench. And it's not like they grow on trees, but they're also not impossible to find. You could probably find one in a draft. You can probably find one for the mid-level exception. Maybe you can trade someone for one. Yeah, I agree. You could build a pretty interesting offense around it.
Yeah, exactly. And I absolutely agree with what you say about redundancy. The question is like, how do we find the right mixture of players who do fit Vision 6-9, but also can create a moderate offensive game plan? I think that's something I've been thinking about a lot too. Is like, well, if you want to have a successful offense with Vision 6-9, and obviously not everybody has to be 6'9", but you have everybody, at least 4 of the players should be able to probably space. And
sorry, I missed that. They have to be able to what?
4 of the players should be able to space. Like 4 of them should be able to hit threes at a pretty high clip. Above average, probably, if you really want to have like the highest level of offense that we're seeing right now in the NBA. And we need to have a lot of motion-based schemes, or we have to have a ton of cutting and a lot of different types of threats that make it extraordinarily difficult to counter for defenses to counter that we're seeing with some of the better teams do today.
Do you see any potential movement shooters on this team currently?
I mean, Wieskamp could be. I was hoping Malachi could be, but I don't think that's going to happen. Really, I was honestly hoping Fred could maybe do it, but I've completely given up on that.
He's certainly smart enough to do it.
He definitely is, but maybe doesn't have quite the stamina to do it. Like, it does require a lot of running and a lot of commitment to it. So I don't know, maybe it's not his thing. He's never really quite done it in his career so far. Like, he's done it a little bit in spurts, but never like a full-on Kevin Huerter type guy or anything like that, or Seth Curry or anything like that. So, who I think would obviously, as you say, like anybody off ball would be way more complimentary, because even if it's true, both Siakam could at least kind of space now a little bit, just a tiny bit, not the best spacer.
Recency bias. But yes, I agree. I mean, look, when he's shooting, the stat that they keep drumming down your throat, 40% from 3 almost at home.
Well,
that's good.
I'm not taking that into account. I'm just saying, if like this guy can shoot a corner 3 at like 35%, that's not the worst, and it's not the end of the world for spacing. At least you can keep them honest to some degree. I'm not thinking about Siakam shooting 40% from 3. I'm not stupid.
No, I get it, and I mean, look, I think too often this team will pass up a 3 to then dribble inside the paint and try to take a more difficult shot, and I think that tends to be a sort of default and a habit that they fall into way too often. So I'd like them to get out of that. Personally, I would like them to just sort of commit themselves to taking good shots. I don't care if Scottie goes 0 for 5. I don't care if Siakam goes 0 for 5 from 3. Take those shots. They are very, very essential. It's trusting the process of the offense, not the result of the offense. Some nights you're going to do everything right and everything is going to be wrong.
Yeah.
You're going to take all the right shots and you're going to miss all the right shots. You're gonna make all the right passes and somehow they're still gonna get picked off, or they're gonna fall out, or the guy's not gonna convert. And there's a tendency on this team, whenever there's like a slight bit of controversy or a light bit of adversity, to immediately default into, okay, well, I'm gonna go do it myself. And that attitude to me is what was starting to show up in the first half, to be honest. Oh,
Yeah.
y'all not going to join me. I'm going to do it myself. That kind of attitude. I'm very happy that in the second half that didn't show up as much. Like in the second half, they played more connected together. And yeah,
and you
like
can hear
I think,
Scottie yelling. He was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like he was in the
yes.
post. He would have a smaller defender on him. I was so happy to hear that. Like Yak was like facing away. He just grabbed the ball from the rebound. I guess a long rebound. He hears Scottie. He immediately just throws it. Like I love. They're so unselfish. They're so connected. They pass to each other. They know where each other wants to be.
Like I think like the dynamics of this team are as such, you know, and I think that any organization, you can look at it this way. If Walmart is the worst company in the world, right? They're the most if they are the most corrupt company in the world, then the fact that the cashier at your local Walmart is a good person doesn't really matter, because the CEO is corrupt, the CFO is corrupt, etc. Leadership has a trickle down sort of intention with it. So if your assistant coach has all the greatest ideas, but then your head coach never listens to your assistant coach, it doesn't really have an impact on the product on the court, because the assistant coach. So I think that with Jakob and Scottie and OG in the starting lineup, in my opinion, intelligence finally outweighs stupidity.
Yeah.
Selflessness finally outweighs selfishness in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
And the other two guys, quite frankly, who have a bit of tunnel vision, and Gary and Boucher, like I think those four guys are the guys that I genuinely believe, and not all equally, not all at the same time, but at times they tend to get a little bit too me first. And they have a tendency to default into that when things aren't going right, or if you know, they get challenged in a one-on-one matchup, or some guy scores on them, they have a tendency to like want to go back at that guy. You know, if Fred gets blown by and someone, you know, makes him look bad or whatever, next time, you know, he's gonna pull up on a three for that guy, right?
Yeah.
So once you start to, not only is Jakob being now seen more as a leader, I think he has a bit of a stoic sort of presence on this team. I've really sort of admired that about him in this stint with him. Is he's grown a lot in San Antonio. It's so clear to me that he's done so much work with
and
Tim
we're
Duncan,
lucky
and
he was in San Antonio. Like we traded him to San Antonio to be under Pop and Tim Duncan. That's, I think, whatever other people have to say, I think that's a lot of mentorship that actually counts for something, at least in terms of intangibles.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, Tim Duncan did put the work in with Jakob. Like he 100% did. This is not hypothetical, you know, bullshit. Like, I actually watched it happen, and it's pretty incredible that he's doing so much of the stuff that Tim Duncan did for the Spurs. Like he's obviously picked up so many tips and tricks in terms of, you know, setting picks, and you know, when to get loose, and how to sort of release, and just expanding as a playmaker. One of the biggest things about Tim Duncan that was just so underrated consistently, because he never put up those massive playmaking numbers, was just how great a passer he was. So one of the things about Shaq, you know, playmaking bigs and championships, wow. Bill Russell, great playmaker. Great playmaker, right?
Exactly.
Shaq,
Bill Walton.
great. Bill Walton, Shaq, like great.
Kevin Garnett.
Like,
Kevin Garnett.
KG, right? Chris Bosh, not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much. But LeBron, like upside, like if you
LeBron, small ball five.
You know, teams have won in all different ways. All different ways, like all sorts of different ways. We've seen, you know, a slow, big point guard, like in Magic Johnson. We have seen, you know, an off-ball type of point guard. Magic was pretty slow. I mean, he wasn't like a speed demon, right? We've seen smallish point guards like Isaiah Thomas. We've seen, you know, backcourt duos. We've seen front court duos. We've seen LeBron and KD. Sorry, LeBron and AD. We've seen, you know, jump shooting teams win championships. LeBron and Kyrie. One thing I will say, I can't think of a team that's won a championship without a plus size playmaker.
Absolutely.
Rasheed Wallace was an underrated passer as well, in my opinion. Dirk Nowitzki was a bit of an underrated passer himself. Having a guy that you can throw the ball to who cannot really have his vision impaired, who can become sort of a release valve and an outlet, that you can just get him the ball and he can do something. You know, not to compare it to my own basketball escapades, but there was this one guy that we used to play with, and it wasn't that he wasn't really all that tall, but he was just very big. He was a very big human being, and he was a great passer. and he would just sort of park his ass in the post, and he might score 2 points in a single pickup game at best. But our offense just flowed so much better with that dude. He would set picks for people. He would get people moving. There's so much more to spacing and movement than simply shooting.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah. Anyway, playing for what? Thanks. Always
Oh,
a
I
nice
just have
discussion.
one more point too, and
Sure.
then
What's
I'll
up?
go. I also think in the future, if Scottie elevates to that point when Yak is still young enough, I think Yak will be the perfect role partner for Scottie. Even though obviously we want him to be able to pop, which he can't. But if teams decide to sag off Yak, that's just too much space for Scottie to pull up if he ever becomes an efficient mid-range player. If he ever reaches that MVP level and can pull up mid-range, it will be like watching Kawhi, but like an elite level playmaker Kawhi. Like it would be insane to watch if Scottie ever reaches that. But that's the last thing I want to say tonight.
All right, thanks a lot, man.
You have a good night.
Cheers. I agree, and ever since the All-Star weekend and people calling Scottie baby Kawhi, Kawhi light, Kawhi whatever, I've been looking into that a lot more, and just when he dips his shoulder and if he can get that shot off and he can get that turnaround right, I mean, the gap in space from where he starts the gather to where he releases the shot, there's so much space created in that one turnaround. Like, dude, if you've seen Scottie Barnes, one of the things you notice very quickly is the high torso. That means big strides. The potential for guys who have that weirdo body type, like a Giannis, people who are very high waisted, it's just physics. It's just straight up physics. If you think about it, where you start your gather, by the time you turn around, especially if you fade, you could be clearing like, I'm not kidding, like 14 feet, 13 to 14 feet. If you can learn your footwork right on that shot, that's a clean look. I mean, if you just become a halfway respectable shooter from 14 to 15 feet, you're an automatic bucket. Rasheed Wallace made a living off that turnaround in the mid post. I mean, if Scottie can do that, like, this is lights out, because he's so much better in terms of, and he has all the same physical advantages that guys like Rasheed, guys like Kawhi, they had, which is just strength, like grown man strength, big shoulders, tough base. Like, they're not easy to move off the block if they really want to. And I mean, if he starts getting that down, you add the playmaking to it, plus you add like the transition stuff. Like, look, it may never develop into a top 5 player. He may never get to the level that Shai is at right now. We don't know. I can guess, I can estimate, but man, like, there's some very unstoppable offensive potential there. Agreed. Next up, and our final caller of the night, we have Mario. What's up, Mario?
Hey, well, I watched tonight's broadcast from Oklahoma.
You're in Oklahoma?
No.
Oh, you mean like okay, gotcha. My bad. I don't know why I thought you went to Oklahoma to watch it. I was like, what? I mean, they were playing in Toronto. I get it. You watched the OKC podcast. I get it.
I watched the OKC broadcast. And, it's always interesting to listen to somebody who doesn't know us well and what they think about us. And, hey, before I go on, what happened? I didn't see Precious, and of course, they didn't bring Precious up at all. Is this just a flat benching, or is he hurt, or what's going on?
I don't think he's hurt. He didn't look hurt, and he was dressed. So, I mean, they didn't have Delano Banton in uniform tonight. He was in street clothes. Jeff Doughton, I believe, was also in street clothes. Also very interesting to see that. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I think it's just he's just come out flat, and he's really hurt them a few games in a row. And maybe they've sort of just said, okay, like, maybe this is a way to get a message to him. Or maybe they're like, hey, we have 12 games left and we don't have time to wait for this guy to pick it up or stop sulking over a loss of minutes or whatever. I don't know. I'm sad. I'm sad to see it. I think he was a really, really big part of what they were trying to build here. And personally, I would like to see him get minutes, even though he hasn't been contributing positively. It makes, like, him playing minutes and getting reps makes whatever's happening this season a little bit more tolerable for me.
Yeah, I hear you, but I mean, I guess they're replacing him with Koloko, and it's immediately good to see Koloko out and doing his thing.
I love Christian Koloko. Yeah, so like I mean obviously like long term fit be, considered, I think Koloko's a way better player. I just think okay, I don't want to say way better player. I think his upside, maxed upside is like a little bit higher just because he's smarter. Like he's a smarter player. Like he's a rookie and I can tell you he's already smarter than Precious Achiuwa, and like he just plays within himself. He has that sort of calm of a veteran. It's very interesting to watch. All the stuff that I really like about Jakob, like in terms of like short roll potential and playmaking potential, and just the ability to sort of move into the right spaces on the court, not to get into other guys' ways. Like sometimes you'll see Precious Achiuwa and he'll cut into at a time when you're just like, oh my god, fuck, just stand still, like stop that. You're supposed to pop out for that. He just, his awareness is so bad sometimes. And early in the season last year, I was very upset and I was like calling for him to be benched and calling for him to go down to the G League to get reps because I was just like, this could be the worst player in the NBA right now. And then the second half of the season for Precious Achiuwa was just so good. Like he was so much better, and he just flashed this crazy amount of upside. I came into the season with so many hopes for him.
Yeah, and I think the hopes are still there, but I agree with you. Like until you're ready to play, you're not really ready to play. And we were talking about maybe they were putting Thad in to keep him on the bench, and I think Koloko's the better choice right now. But I was watching Wee's camp,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never really watched him before, but I was like main focus on him while he was on the court, and he did.
3 minutes.
What's that?
3 minutes.
Yeah, it didn't take long. But he did that thing that you're complaining that Precious doesn't, was without turning around to look, he knew the spot on the perimeter he was supposed to be that was the biggest hole, and he backed his way into it while still watching the play. And,
Yeah.
and that's good, like. And the other thing I saw him do was a really nice little contest right at the rim. He got there in time as the help defense went straight up, looked really good, and somebody came behind a Boucher or something and blocked the ball.
Yeah, I mean he's awesome. I am a very big fan. I'm a very big fan of Joe Wieskamp. I think he's, I did that little video on him, and man, I dug into so much footage on him from college in order to make that video, and I started to look into just some of his athletic testing and draft stuff, and I just think that he's got all sorts of potential. Yeah. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Kawada from Mars. Really appreciate it. Yeah. What else did you think? Was there anything else that stuck out in terms of?
From OKC, I mean, they want to put the two teams very much in the same parallel.
Okay.
So they're also very good at offensive rebounding and second chance points, and I don't know what all the thing, but they kept saying, well, the Raptors are like us, and like they're really good at this and they're really good at that, and we dominate with hustle stats, and given that we have difficulty attracting high level talent, it makes sense that that's the way forward is to try and out hustle the other people. And what are the other things? Siakam, he was trying to describe Siakam to the OKC fans, and he said basically he's Shai, whatever, however you pronounce him.
He's basically Shai.
Yeah, he's an equivalency. Maybe not like 100 to 100, but that was the equivalency he wanted to use. It offensively, that he is dangerous.
No, he is not.
All the time and has an endless bag. That was that's what he looks like. And people don't think of him as a weak 3-point shooter. Just, they don't talk about his 3-point shooting. It's not exciting to anybody, but
Yeah, honestly, I thought there's no broadcast worse than the Raptors broadcast, and what you're describing sounds like the seventh circle of hell. Like, I don't even know what, like, okay, like I'm not like, okay, I hope that people do not take this disrespectfully, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is really, really freaking good. Like, it is he is I don't like to use the word carrying. I hate that term so much, but I just want to be clear. there are 2 rookies that started with him tonight with a second-year player who does not play defense. Like, I mean, do you look at that roster and say, how the hell are they in the play-in? I mean, my God. Like, we talked about Kobe Bryant carrying Smush Parker and Kwame Brown to the playoffs and how he should have won MVP that year. Honestly, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is like 92% of that right now. Like, he's so freaking good. He's not a great defender right now. Yeah, sure. Okay. He's not a perfect player. Fine. He's not Luka. He's not, he's not Jokic, but my God, like comparing him to Siakam is offensive on so many levels. He's just he's firmly on a different level. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just is
The other
and now people are going to say that I'm hating, and I don't want them to say that I'm hating, and I'm not trying to hate. I'm just trying to be realistic here. I mean, did you watch him play? Like, have you like does he look like he has an equivalent bag to Siakam? Like, dude, the guy can do anything with the basketball. Like, if his team showed up tonight, I really do believe like this was. I mean, like, my God, like this was a bad game for him. You know what I mean? Like,
they want to talk about us that we're keeping them out of their rhythm. That all the
that is true, 100%. Like, we have such disruptive.
Not where they wanted him to be, and he's not got as many assists, and we're over focused on him, and we took him away to a certain extent, even though he got 30 points. That's their opinion. They really refreshing in their approach to the refs. So they wanted first to talk about the refs in the first quarter when the Raptors were up 10-0 free throw disparity.
Mm-hmm.
And then they wanted to talk about the refs in the second and third quarter when they basically swallowed the whistle. And the guy actually predicted the whistles in the fourth. And like during the third quarter, he said they're going to change again in the fourth. And it's really hard for players to keep adjusting because the refs are not being consistent. And then a couple of times when it was OKC fouling us, the guy said, "Oh, I agree with that foul, but I want the call sooner," right? like the call's too late and shit like this. So,
I agree. I don't think the whistle was very even tonight in the sense that I think at times it favored the Raptors. I think it over-favored the Raptors. I don't know if they're trying to like throw Fred VanVleet a bone for all of his criticism or trying to give him his money's worth for the 30,000, saying here's an extra, 2 whistles. I didn't expect that, but obviously home teams do get favorable whistles. I mean, I don't know. As I mentioned earlier in this chat, like you could literally go down and identify 50 fouls on both sides that aren't called and maybe 10 bad calls on each side. So reps are never going to be perfect. I mean, Alvin Williams is sitting right there with the presence of a television, and he can't tell you which player is which and what their names are. So how the fuck are we supposed to expect referees to do anything? Yeah, and honestly, to conclude this, Mario, I want to tell you that I thought a lot about your east-west, north-south, aligning pairs, vertical and horizontal alignment stuff, and I wanna try and explain what I've made of it, and I want you to tell me if you think that I'm right. Like, if you think that I've gotten it, like I kind of understand what you're saying. So, like when we think of good and bad, right? There's a sort of vertical contesting to it. Like when our day is going poorly, we're like, oh, this sucks, and then when day's going well, it's like, oh, this is much better than that. Whereas what you're suggesting is you look at it more like from the position of, how do I put this? From the perspective of conflict and resolution. So there is conflict, but while in conflict, know that it will always transition over to resolution, and that resolution will ultimately result. Is almost to look at it more from a holistic perspective as opposed to always an up and down perspective. Does that sort of sum it up?
Yes.
May not have said it correctly, but
yes. But you're opposing as being distinct from. Still, you just said as opposed to, and I would have used as distinct from within this understanding. But it's less about it, the judgment of what it should be, and more about the realization of what you are doing. They're both okay. So listen to this. Rob, do you want to sink down in the gutter, or are you going to raise your consciousness? So it's built, that verticality is built into our language, right?
Hell in heaven. Yeah, I get it.
Hell in heaven. And then there's a second part to this, which is absolute and relative. So to me, vertical absolute statements are moral statements. And so if I say to you, you should never wear orange, foolishly, I'm making a moral statement about color choice. But to say rape is wrong, right? Like
Mhm.
that's an absolute vertical statement. As distinct from it's all good, right? Both choices are fine. Are we talking about chocolate or vanilla, strawberry or blueberry? Yes,
Right.
strawberry, not blueberry, but it's not like one is definitively better than the other. But again, it's for me to be consistent in how I see these things, and
Mhm.
then be aware of how you're seeing them, and then to be aware of, does the way that you see them match the way that I see them, or are we, you're seeing it vertically and I'm seeing it horizontally? And now there's whole bunches of strategies open to me who've been doing this for 40 years, right?
Gotcha.
How do I approach you? Do I want to oppose you? Do I want to try and get you to turn 90? Am I just going to agree and stay with you on the space that you're in? And so it gives you that control of how you're approaching the conversation, kind of thing.
Gotcha. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'll let you know how this continues for me in terms of my understanding of it. And yeah, thanks a lot for calling in. I always appreciate our calls.
So before I let you go,
Mm-hmm.
we talk sometimes about connecting not like this, but I don't necessarily want to give you my email address over the internet. And I don't know if you want to do the same thing. I don't have any of the
You
fancy
have my, you just go to about Pensar basketball about, and you can send me an email. Cool.
Okay, cool. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do
All
that.
right. Cheers, man.
Ciao.
See ya. All right. And we're going to take a 2-minute break. And then right when we come back, we're going to hear from Vince, who's joining us. I'm sure the chat will enjoy hearing from Vince. Always a fun chat. um, Before I go on my 1-minute break, and I promise it won't be long, guys. I just need 1 minute to turn monetization on because I forgot to turn monetization on for this video. But I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor for this video, which is QAG. Queensway Automotive Group is, it's a group of young entrepreneurs. I talked about it in the last chat. It's a really big thing for me that they've decided to help us out, and they are sponsoring a bunch of content creators in this space, in the Raptor space, in the Leaf space, and you're going to be hearing a lot more about them on our chats. And obviously, like, I've never had a car guy in my life. I've had real estate guys in my life. I've had sports guys in my life. I've never had a car guy in my life. Someone who could guide me into rare cars and like the best deals and the best time to get things. And I think the best way I can describe them is that, like, that's what they could be for you. So if you want to go and check out the link, if you want to give them a call, if you're thinking about getting a car, help your boy out. I actually get commissions on, if you end up buying a car from the match, you get a bit of a kickback on it. So give them a shot. It's one of the things that I'm realizing now that this is not a sponsorship for Pendance, but I do run a film festival. It's called Pendance, the Pendance Film Festival, and I'm just realizing how much the pandemic has hurt us, like, for 3 years, right? We were the last film festival to go live in 2020, and we lost a ton of money in 2020 because it was right before everyone started freaking out. Like, literally the week we put on the festival, we put on Pendance Music, we had Elevator, CJ Fleming, we had such a great festival, and people were just panicking about this thing coming over into North America and being afraid of, and conferences were getting shut down. And so we ended up, like, having a whole bunch of people demand refunds last minute, and it really hurt us. And to be honest, 3 years later, still recovering from that. So now as we transition back to live events, I'm just reminded that this entrepreneurship, being a business owner, trying to be your own boss, doing something new, taking a risk, this is never easy. So sometimes we have to support each other. So I'm really happy that they've chosen to support entrepreneurs, and I'm really happy to support them back. And like I told them, I was like, look, I've declined like 100 sponsorships to this point. Like up until this point, I've declined 100, hundreds a lie, hundreds cap. But there have been like 10, 15 sponsors that have messaged throughout the the last year, and said, hey, you're growing, you have a huge following. Do you want to talk about our betting app? And I'm just like always about integration personally as a human being. I'm just like, if I'm going to guide someone to something, I want to know what that something is. I want to know who I'm sending these people to, because there's no way for me not to be aligned with what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? So yeah, so they're a really good group of guys. And if you want to check out their website, check out the link in the description right there. And I will be back with you guys in 1 minute, and we will talk to Vince. Hey Vince, what's up?
Hey, buddy, what's going on, brother?
Not too much. You're very echoey.
Oh no, is it? Let me see if this helps.
You vanished.
How about now?
I think that's okay. I don't know. Let me know, chat. Is that better? Your audio is usually so good.
I just took my AirPods out and back in.
Okay. Someone's saying Vinsanity. That's funny.
They used to call me that at school.
Did they?
Like with some friends, yeah, Insanity. When I don't know.
Could you dunk?
I could dunk on my kids hoop.
Yeah, your sound sucks, man. It's still
Oh
muffled.
man, seriously? That
Yeah,
sucks.
it's still muffled.
Yeah, I don't know. Here, let me try something. No, this wouldn't do anything.
Daryl's saying maybe don't use AirPods.
Oh yeah, maybe. These things are they're sort of hit or miss, but I use them most of the time. Here, let me
This chat was really a great sponsorship for QAG, not a great sponsorship for AirPods.
yeah, not at all. Hold on. How's that?
It's somehow better. Yeah, I think it's better. It's better. It's good.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. What's up? What'd you think of the game tonight?
I thought it was good. It was, you know, I'm overall still rooting somewhat against them. Like it's a difficult spot to be in because
Did you check out
I'm
March Madness today?
no, I didn't get a chance to. Today was a busy day. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see much of it. But just keeping track of names and like I think Anthony Black was sort of a pipe dream for a little while. I don't think we're going to be bad enough to get him, unfortunately. But hearing the not the last guy, but the guy who spoke before Mario talk about Jakob's role if he was to get a movement shooter on the team, that was an interesting point. I thought if I think Yak could reasonably play the Domantas Sabonis role from that perspective. I think he's got the passing chops for it. Obviously, he doesn't have the same kind of like Domantas isn't a shooter per se, but he's got he could in a pinch he could shoot a three and he's reasonable at it. He's got a bit of a midi, and so he doesn't have that part of the game. But what he said about the gravity that he would cause for being a screening passer to a movement shooter, that would be like I watch almost every Sacramento game.
Right.
So I just see guys like Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter come flying off the screens, and he just dumps a little drop pass off on them, and then boom, like at least 4 or 5 times a game that happens.
Right.
So if he was given somebody to do that with any sort of proficiency, that would be really interesting. He brought up Seth Curry. I think Seth Curry's probably not the kind. He's not a Raptor. I think he just doesn't play defense well enough.
Right.
But man, I'm open to suggestions of anyone else around the league who could reasonably play that role.
Yeah, me too. I mean, look, like I was really for a while there, I was thinking about Landry Shamet as just a really underrated sort of movement shooter. Then for a while, when I thought the Raptors might be bad enough, I was thinking Brandon Miller.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely not happening.
they're saying he's going to go second now.
What?
Yeah, some people are saying he might creep up to second over Scoot.
What do you think of that?
I would bet on Scoot. I don't think there's any. That guy's body is that's LeBron body right there, just slightly shorter, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, there's a caveat there, right? Which is if you're that physically advanced, right? The advantages you have, they tend to go away a little bit at the next level.
sure,
I'm not saying that like he's not going to, continue evolving. He seems to really love the game of basketball. I follow him on Instagram, one of the very few accounts that I do follow on Instagram. And yeah, I genuinely think he's about getting better, and I think he's a good love for the game. So I don't see how you can go wrong. But I had a lot of questions about Brandon Miller, to be honest. I watched a lot of tape on him. I think that could be a mistake, to be honest. But he's good.
yeah,
He's the best player in college basketball for sure.
that the teams tend to play it safe. I think, unless you're the Raptors, I guess. But yeah,
You don't think
I don't
Scottie
know,
was
man.
safe?
What's that?
You don't think Scottie was safe?
If you listen to the pundits, like 96% of them had Jalen Suggs going to our team. I had drank the Kool-Aid on Jalen Suggs just based on the
Oh
stuff I was
no,
watching.
we never
things I
talked
was
about
listening to.
this. We never talked about this. You were a
No,
Suggs guy?
I mean,
How are we friends?
I don't even I can't even pretend to dig into the content of the character nearly as much as you. So I was just like, I was essentially listening. Like I was listening to guys like Sam Vecini, who said, "Oh, Scottie's a no-level shooter," or sorry, a no-level scorer. You're just like, what the fuck, And then you
Yo,
watch
honestly,
and you're like, what are you talking about, bro?
honestly, bro, like, I'm sorry to say this, but like I brought up that quote from Sam Vecini so many times now, and you just did it. And I have this feeling that like 100 years from now, someone is going to go to his grave and it's going to say, "Here lies the guy who thought Scottie was a no-level scorer." And I hate it because we've had a conversation about this, he and I, and he's kind of admitted that he was wrong about it, but it just comes up so often because it was just so wrong.
I know.
It's so wrong. I mean, he adds a three. He's a three-level scorer if you've ever seen one. And, to say no level scorer and the guy comes out and, he averages 15 fucking points a game as a rookie and wins rookie of the year. I mean, wow. Right?
I wonder
Like this
what
is
he
this
said
is
about
this is
Giannis.
this is like I mean, yeah, me too. But like this is like saying Scotty's a no level scorer is almost like saying Evan Mobley is not a good defender or something. Like, and he comes out and is the best defender in his draft class.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I hope in time people can move on. Everyone's wrong. I mean, God, if people like start talking about what I said about Paolo Banchero, like just like I have empathy for Sam. He's
Oh,
not.
you were talking shit about Paolo?
I said I would have taken him third. That I would have taken him that I would have taken Jabari first, and Jabari's he's been just bad so far, right?
He's been putting it together lately. Jabari's been playing better.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, long term, I have no doubt that Jabari Smith is going to be a really good player, but like I totally underrated Paulo, big time. Like I think
his
big time play, because honestly, I thought his defense would be just a much bigger issue than it has been, just because of his size, And I think that's every single time we make. I like guys who make bold projections, right? And saying Scottie was a zero level scorer is not a bold projection because a lot of people felt that way about him based on some of the stuff that he was doing at Florida State. But I think like every time you make a bold projection about a player, like let's say you do say Brandon Miller is a better player than Scoot Henderson. If you're wrong, hopefully you're gonna learn a lot. Like hopefully, the only way you can the only way you could not evolve as a draft analyst, in my opinion, is to just copy the mocks.
Right.
And just be like, look at this guy, whatever,
Sure.
I had Christian Koloko as high as 21, 20, 19 at points on my draft board. And
Did you have above Kessler?
I did.
You did?
I did.
Come on.
I did.
Walker looks legit, bro.
Walker looks amazing, man. Like, my God, do you want to know like all the okay, so here are the picks that I sort of trolled when they happened. Paolo at 1, Benedict at 6. Yeah. The picks that I absolutely celebrated: Dyson at 8, Jabari at 3. I thought Keegan was fine at 4. I wasn't one of those like, oh, D plus, they suck. I was whatever, he's fine. The other picks that I really liked: AJ Griffin, loved AJ Griffin to the Hawks. Yeah. And I love Jalen Duren. So those are the picks that I really loved. Christian Koloko as well. Here are picks that I was not a fan of. This has turned out really bad for me. Paolo Banchero, Benedict Mathurin, Jalen Williams. Oh my God.
Oh, J-Dub.
Yes,
I love
J-Dub. I thought he went too high, and I was just so fucking wrong. I didn't watch enough of him, man. I honestly, this is the one thing that this has taught me is don't even try. Don't try to do catch-up scouting late. Watch 2 games of a guy and think that you have an idea of what the hell they are. You're just becoming like everybody else. And I had this idea that I was going to do this massive draft review show, and I just wanted to watch enough of all these guys. And to be honest, I just didn't watch enough. I didn't watch enough. I wasn't invested enough. So this year I started my scouting earlier, and now I've sort of tailed off because the Raptors like clearly don't look like they're drafting top 10. But then also like the most interesting thing is if they are drafting 14, 15, 13, 12, this is the weirdest part of the draft to scout because you literally have to scout 20 players.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because I mean, if you think about it, like every single year, there's a guy who's mocked 37th or 36th who ends up climbing to 13 or 14, right? Last year, that player was Dyson Daniels.
Right.
Jalen Williams, right? Do you know? Okay, here's a crazy thing that people may not realize. Do you know that there was a mock draft a couple months before the Siakam draft? Do you know where he was mocked?
Where?
Take a guess.
Like crazy low or high?
Just guess. I'm not going to tell you crazy low or high. Just guess.
I would have said in the second round, like 40s, 50s.
Okay, that's a very broad range. I want a number. Chat, let me know. Like, give me an idea.
43, his number.
That would be ironic. Zigsaw puzzle saying 15th. Nope, not 15th. I promise I'll tell you if someone gets close, and 45 is not close. Anyone have any idea where Siakam was mocked? Yes. Oh my God, that's so close. He was mocked 54th. 54th. Someone said facts. That's a very good apt name. Facts. Yeah. Someone saying 3. Are you mad? What are you saying? Pascal Siakam was mocked 3. That would be amazing. No, he was mocked 54th. And you know, like it's interesting kind of going back to what people were saying about him in New Mexico State and also learning how did 2016s pass on Pascal Siakam?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like every single time like a draft analyst is wrong, I think there's a learning opportunity there. With Siakam, I think what people were not projecting properly was, yeah, he wasn't making threes, but look how far out the twos he was making in New Mexico State were. All that shooting potential was on display. He was taking a ton of 18, 19, 20-foot shots. And of course, the fact that he picked up basketball late, you know what I mean? And every single year, I think the draft process ideally becomes more and more perfected. So the same thing that you kind of got tricked by before, you don't get tricked by again, ideally, unless you're a team that just keeps making the same mistake over and over and over again, you know, in which case, you know, welcome to the Detroit Pistons. But
the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I mean, they got Anthony Edwards, right?
I mean, that was a pretty no-brainer. If they fuck that up, man.
It's not a no-brainer. Number one picks, you know, there was a lot of talk about LaMelo Ball going number 1 that year.
I mean, you could have done well with both those guys for sure. Obviously, Ant is probably better. And again, you go for body and raw size at that point. Like if you've got 2 equally skilled players, you're always going to go with the one with the bigger body. So I thought for sure he was going to go to them. I guess them taking Wiseman would have been the most Minnesota thing ever, but didn't happen. I can't believe Golden State fucking took Wiseman. That, like, I was shocked. Like, I'm not a draft expert. What I usually do is I watch all of the little synopses that Mike Schmitz and crew put together, and those things are fantastic, right? They're usually like 20-minute videos. Yo, did somebody just give you $1,700, bro?
What?
Somebody just give you, I don't know, it says $1,690.
It's Taiwanese currency. Thank you so much, SH. You keep stepping this number up and making our chat lose their minds every single time, and I appreciate it every single time. That's a crazy amount of money still, and thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, guys. Like this is awesome.
Good for you, man, and good for you for getting a sponsor.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a very unexpected sort of thing to happen. We've been offered quite a few, and I gotta be honest. Like sometimes I'm very finicky. I'm very finicky with people. Like I have these very absurd and weird standards, and you know, like if I agree to, like I'll give you an example. Like there was a sponsor that was very very close, and I'm not gonna say who, but they're a pretty big company. And they sponsor a lot of really big podcasts that I listen to, like The Ringer and Volume and shit like that. Like they're big. And I remember I had scheduled a call with them for 10 a.m. And at 9:52, they rescheduled it, and I was done.
Oh,
I was done with them. I was like, nah, fuck that shit. That's disrespectful.
Was it Built Bar?
I'm not gonna mention who. But you know, I mean, it is what it is. But like, I believe in the sort of human element of it. I understand it's a business. I understand it's a transaction, whatever. But if I'm gonna be, you know, so Darren, the guy who reached out to me from QHE, we talked. He mentioned that he listens to the lives. He's like, yo, I know you're controversial as hell, but you have a voice, and I like it. And we're never gonna tell you what to say or what not to say. We're gonna ask you to stay yourself. And I was like, yo, you're speaking my language right now. You know, you're going to sponsor me. You're going to give me this amount of money, and you're going to let me be myself. and they put no language into like how I have to present them. They didn't say
Oh,
how
cool.
often I have to present them. There's so much faith and trust being shown here that
That's
there's a
wicked.
part of me that just wants them to like, I wanna do well for them, you know? Like there's a part of me that's just like, I owe it to them to do well because they've shown me so much faith. You know, they've been so good. They've been so good
That's
to
awesome,
us. So
dude. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. You deserve it. That's funny. Like I don't even find you to be, I don't know, all that like you have your biases, but it's not controversial. I don't know. Anyway,
I can be controversial sometimes for sure.
I guess that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. When you show me your video, the Pascal lowlight video, I even messaged you, or I even called you up and be like, yo, to maybe tamp that down just a little bit. But
what did you end up thinking of the Honest trailer? I don't think we ever talked about it.
no, I thought it was hilarious. I think you changed a bit from I have to AB them to
What about the
fully-
voice? Because Vince was, by the way, guys, Vince is a musician and he's a singer and he has a much nicer voice than me. Even though if we karaoke'd it out, we'd have a karaoke battle right now. Because I disclosed to Vince that I sing too. I can only sing one fucking singer. His songs. I could sing Craig David's songs. That's sort of a really random reference, but
All right, David.
I could do all of Craig David's entire hit list. Like I could be I don't know. Like if you put a mask on my face, I could be like a Craig David impersonator.
You'd be on that show, The Masked Singer.
Is that it? Yeah, but that's about it. But anyways, Vince was gonna do the voiceover for the thing, and we couldn't make the timing work because I wanted to get it out sooner. So I ended up doing it myself. So how did the voiceover turn out?
It was good. It was great. Yeah. You had the right. You would have even you even said to me that even if I was to be able to do it within your time frame, you would have had to coach me on certain things, and I totally would have needed that, right? In order to fully deliver the right kind of.
You want to do an impromptu honest trailer right now? Let's do an impromptu honest trailer about something funny. Just
Right,
I don't know.
Sure.
Okay? Take requests. Chat. Give me a request for an honest trailer that you would like. Really random. And just try it. Whatever. I like putting myself into uncomfortable situations where I squirm a little bit.
Oh man. Yeah, shit.
Someone suggested the other day, why don't you do an honest trailer of yourself? Oh man. From the channel that thinks Scottie Barnes is the greatest thing since sliced bread comes a guy
right.
who swears that Fred VanVleet is worse than Adolf Hitler. Shit. Watch as this 35-year-old hater sits there and dissects every dribble that Pascal Siakam has ever taken in his entire life as he compliments Scottie Barnes for breathing.
That's right. Hey man, there you go. You
learn to laugh at yourself, bro.
At least you can laugh at yourself, bro. That's
Listen, as this 35-year-old who swears that he's evolved takes low dig after low dig at various media members, other YouTubers, yells at his callers, plays favorites.
Actually, I just saw an interview with Doug Smith. He was completely right about everything he said about him.
Oh no.
Yeah, dude. No.
Oh my god. Honestly, if I swear to God, okay, so here's the crazy thing. I've now watched 2 content creators out there make multiple videos entirely about me, and they are outperforming their own Raptors content, bro.
Come on.
I'm not kidding. The videos that these dudes are making about me are outperforming their Raptors content.
Sorry, the Chubstown guy, and then who else?
The
Chevy guy.
Yeah.
Oh right.
Fucking video got 3,000 views, and I'm like, bro, I'm not famous. How are you? People really must hate me so hard. That's all good.
Whatever, man. I'll listen to I'll listen to those because they're about you, but I won't listen to their other stuff. Bro, that guy's I tried to give that dude a listen. And it was just annoying. That dude, whatever. I don't shit talk him on. I'll just say my personal
I'm gonna
experience.
do an honest trailer about him right now. That would be funny as fuck.
But I'll an honest trailer. But like in all honesty, it was a lot of hyperbole. There wasn't a lot of direction to a lot of the stuff he said. Like using a lot of metaphors that make very little sense.
Listen, as this 50-year-old who sits in an apartment in the Bronx in his underwear swears that Pascal Siakam can do no wrong ever, that he is above criticism and that he walks on water like Jesus Christ. Listen, as he threatens other YouTubers with a knife to the neck and brings up guns far too often. Like, what are you doing, bro? Like, I mean, just I think my own honest trailer was better. I don't have much to say about the guy, but for real, like, I mean, whatever. Raptors content.
We don't have to spend time talking about it. I just in my limited experience with listening to his stuff, it was like I maybe have listened in entirety about an hour's worth altogether. So like 5 to 10 minute chunks at a time. Right, of his stuff, and I just like,
someone brought up dopamine docs, right? They said it's a high, you get a high, you know, and then afterwards you kind of feel shitty. Also, I want to give a shout out to my girlfriend. I have been such a dick. I have been promising to go to the grocery store for close to a week now, and I've been putting it off endlessly. Like every day there's a new excuse with me. I was like, for a reason that I didn't do it. And we're literally all starving. Like, we're all starving here. You know, my dog didn't have food for 2 days. She literally ordered the food off of Amazon because I was like, I kept giving him peanut butter and bread like an asshole. And today, I just went out like right now, and she had gotten like a tub of Nutella and a bunch of wraps and some bread, and she'd written me a note, said apocalypse survival guide.
Oh, that's funny.
That is funny. Yeah, but I've just been so busy with pen dance, like, for real. Like, it's been kind of all consuming.
Oh, nice, dude.
Yeah, the films are so good, and we just got a venue. One of our two venues we're looking at, Isabel Bader Theater and Tiff Bell Lighthouse is the other venue, but we just got the Carlton Cinema for like the entire weekend for a really decent rate, and now we're just trying to figure out, like, how many films we can program. Some good ones, probably some world premieres. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome,
yeah.
Dude. Yeah, I'd love to come out. I'd love to come out and support for sure.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
It's a beautiful theater.
It is a beautiful theater, and the kind of like let's call it like the weirdest part of this for me is that I used to have philosophy lectures there.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Did you go to U of T?
I did go to U of T. Here, look at this. This is a clip from.
I need y'all to make some fucking noise for CJ Flemings right now.
This is Pen Dance Music 2020.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. What? Let's go. Toronto. Let's go.
All of a sudden,
yeah.
Sally ringing. All of a sudden,
hands up.
diamonds flooding.
Hands up.
Please don't you press my buttons. All of a sudden, fans wanna call me cousin. All of a sudden, fans wanna call me cousin. Yeah. When I first approached you, didn't give a fuck when I first.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
That's dope, dude.
Yeah, I mean, he's awesome. He's so good. We had the craziest lineup of singers. We had a pop singer. We had him. He's a rapper from Montreal, and he was named the Apple Artist of the Year to close the year for 2020. And then we had Elevator. Do you know Elevator?
Oh yeah.
You know Elevator? Yeah, we had Elevator, and it was such an eclectic group, and I was just like, this is my vibe. Because, like, I remember one time someone found my iPod, and they were like, whose iPod is this? And they opened it up, and they were just like, it's the weirdest mix of music in the history of the world. You had country songs, like, from Keith Urban. You had rap, like, heavy, deep rap songs, like, that no one's heard of. That was just like, why? How the hell did this guy find this underground shit? You had pop songs. You had, like, they counted 37 different languages of songs.
No.
37 different languages. I had a Farsi song in there. I had a Hindi song in there. I had several Italian songs, several Portuguese songs, Spanish songs, Serbian songs, Russian songs. I think I had a national anthem at some point. It was a very, very eclectic thing. And I just believe, like, like pile it up, like pile up the experiences, bring them in from all directions. So
you're a real deal Toronto man's. That's how we do.
Is that what it means to be a Toronto man? I think it's
That's
more like
right.
a citizen of the world. But yeah, like Toronto, like I remember when we first moved here, I was 14, and I remember going back and forth with my cousin about how this place was more diverse and more multicultural than New York. And she'd be like, no, no way. It's not more multicultural. And I still don't know the answer to that question. I have no
Sure.
idea which place is more multicultural. I'm just very blessed that I got to grow up in two places that were just like full of different people from all over
Yeah.
the place. You learn so much from different people. And this comment from Daryl, which has just been sitting on the screen here. Your Taiwanese followers kind of the best, no bias. I mean, from Daryl, who's in Taiwan right now. But so true. Like, how wild is it to have a chat where you consistently have people coming in from China and Taiwan and Kenya, and like it's such a cool thing that we're building here. I think it's very, very awesome.
It's sick, dude. Yeah, and I don't know, just like another byproduct of being Torontonian is that like you kind of you have like a little in, like if you ever spend any time amount of time either from school or or any like kind of sports groups or whatever, you're bound to like kind of fall in with a group of like random Portuguese guys playing soccer or random Filipino dudes playing basketball or whatever group of people from whatever class that you guys used to take, and it's just like this awesome, I don't know, this awesome melting pot. No, is it a melting pot? Not
I don't
really.
think so. I don't think so. And that's kind of, I think that's kind of the cool thing. I remember asking once Jean Chrétien, attended a lecture, ironically, at Isabel Bader Theater with my ex-girlfriend. Jean Chrétien was there, and he was talking former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, for anyone out there who does not know who Jean Chrétien is, or is just new to the country, or just doesn't follow politics, and or is bad with names. But yeah, I remember asking him this question about like identity, and if it's good to have hybrid identity or a melted identity, in terms of, country building. Like, is it good that an American identifies as an American first, and is it good that a person who's never been to Italy, whose parents have never been to Italy, but because their last name is Sanudo, will always root for Italy against Canada, even though it's like they're so much more Canadian than they are Italian? Like, is that a good thing? I don't know. I really don't know. I think like identity is complicated, very complicated. But yeah,
that's called front running. You just gotta cheer for cheer for the team who you think is gonna win. I assume you're talking about soccer in that regard.
Yeah, when it's hockey, root for Canada. When it's soccer, root for Italy. I get it.
Exactly. Oh yeah, you'd be a good guest on How Hungry Are You?
RoRo with the greatest comment ever. He said Jean Chrétien and melting pots. This is some 4-dimensional basketball analysis. I'm assuming that's sarcastic, but if it's potentially sarcastic, it's also potentially really funny.
Yeah,
it's probably both. Anyways, moving back to basketball after this brief detour, which went into honest trailers and shit talking other channels and soccer, melting pots and culture, moving it back to basketball. What do you think of what Scottie's been doing in this sort of like what I mentioned earlier about this sort of unstoppable turnaround shot that he seems to be developing? Because I'm seeing more and more of it from him. I wasn't seeing a lot of it. I've seen bits and pieces of it at Florida State. I saw a couple of these shots at Montverde. This is obviously not something he just picked up yesterday. It's something he's been building up for a while, but they haven't been going in quite like they have been lately, especially that Lakers game where it was just over and over and over. It doesn't feel like it's a shot that anyone can really stop if he puts his mind to it.
I mean, we even saw this in his first year when there were certain times where, and I'm making a very loose reference here, it would be Kawhi-like insofar as like there were that he could get easy buckets off of a couple of moves,
Mm-hmm.
right? Didn't even have to break a sweat, kind of back a guy down, turn, jump hook type of deal over the shoulder, right? Like not so much the over the left shoulder fadeaway, but or no wait, what am I saying? Over the right shoulder fadeaway,
Right.
like the over the left shoulder jump hook kind of thing, where you're just like, dude, it looks like this guy could get this off at any time. Wouldn't have to break a sweat doing it, just so long as he's got an inch on his defender. And sometimes they don't even, he doesn't even need a size advantage, right? So you're just like, you see that sort of thing, and you're like, that's what makes you believe like this guy could be like a super duper star, right? Like it's just a matter of if not when. So yeah, I'm into it. He also had this other fucking crazy move toward the end of the game. Like I can't even describe it for you. It was over, like the game was already at hand.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what bucket I was talking about? He kind of got into the lane.
Full disclosure, 6 minutes, no, 4 minutes left of the fourth quarter. I started to feel very tired, very sleepy, and I laid my head down, knowing damn well that there's a very good chance that I could sleep right through this live and miss my first live ever, and everyone just be like, oh, and then all the stories that would come out, Siakam has a big game, and Rob doesn't do a live because he's buried, he's hiding or some bullshit like that. And I basically woke up to that nightmare.
That's funny.
I basically woke up like with a minute to go in the game, and I was just like, ugh, wow. I am obviously burning on fumes, and I'm having a coffee right now, which means I'm going to be up until like 5 a.m. right now, doing pen dance stuff. But yeah, like I didn't watch the last 4 minutes of the game, so if it's the last 4 minutes, I probably missed it.
Yeah. Anyway, he had a crazy move getting into the lane, kind of went to his left, but shot with his right hand. He's just like, damn, that was fucking impressive. But yeah, like exactly what you're saying, how you outlined that like he can get to these shots. I'm sorry to say for all the Pascal supporters, and I do like Pascal, but he just doesn't have any of those in his game. He's got to work really hard for the stuff that he gets, right? And so
he does.
And Scottie doesn't, and hopefully Pascal can see that and help be a shepherd, help shepherd Scottie's sort of dominance, for lack of a better term, on the team. He help guide his, or help steward his like first option ship on the Raptors, right? It's not if it's going to happen, it's when.
Sure. John Lang here. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing the last name correctly. He said if Miles Turner became a good shooter, Jakob and be a great shooter. Miles was one of the worst shooters I've ever seen years ago. I don't think I necessarily agree with that at all. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much for the super chat.
So if Miles became a great shooter,
like if Miles became a good shooter, then Jakob can become a great shooter, because Miles was like the worst shooter he's ever seen.
Was he terrible?
I don't think so. No. I don't think he was that terrible.
Yeah, I thought coming out of college that was one of his strengths.
It was. I watched a pre-draft workout with him, and he was hitting shots from the mid range.
Yeah.
Very consistently. So yeah, I mean, it's the same. I think like the Miles Turner. I keep comparing Christian Koloko to a taller, bouncier Draymond Green, and people keep looking at me really funny when I say that, because it's really hard for people to fathom like where the comp is, because Draymond is smaller, he's a ball handler. You start making abstract comparisons, people start to lose their minds a little bit. But I think Miles Turner meets Draymond is probably like a more apt comparison in terms of what he can be. And again, like, people haven't seen all the shooting potential from Christian Koloko, barring that, apart from that 1-3 that he hit from the corner and everyone was all hype. But man, he can do it. He can stretch the floor, and he will get better at it. And you'll see once he starts doing that, yikes. Yeah. I'm actually like, as much as I'm bummed about Precious not like playing right now, because I think that he's an asset, and I think it's sort of like I worry about, because he's a part of your core going forward, right? He's always been considered a part of that young core, that 6, 7 guys. And to just have him collecting DMP CDs is tough, right? Like, I don't think Will Barton was great tonight. You know, what are you really losing playing him instead of Will Barton? Okay, fine. Like, Will Barton's a better shooter. He's more consistent, etc. But Precious is a way better defender and a better rebounder and a better offensive rebounder. So, like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's a fine balance trying to win and develop at the same time. I get it sometimes, but I just don't think that the guys who are playing above him necessarily impact winning so much more than he does that it warrants that. But it was nice to see the starters not be run into the ground tonight, that, you know, the bench did get some minutes. Obviously, if the game wasn't a blowout, probably they veer back into the 37, 38, 39 minute range. But yeah. Forgetting for a second that you and I probably definitely think Scottie will turn into a star. The article that I was reading about Siakam, and sometimes it's very helpful to go back a couple of years and read what people were saying and see how wrong or right they were. Not just to sort of evaluate their analysis, but rather just to understand the concept of analysis and projection in a nutshell. And one of the things that I'm sort of realizing is we've all been wrong before. Vince Carter, after year 2, year 3, Grant Hill, year 5, year 6. I mean, we're talking box plus minus. Grant Hill put up an 8 box plus minus season. 8. That's MVP level.
He was a superstar.
Yes, he was. He had his own shoes, and I mean, serious. Sean Kemp, another example, the Rain Man, right? Tracy McGrady. I mean, Tracy McGrady did hit peak, you know, but like what people thought he could be, you know, and I don't think anyone saw his 30s coming. I don't think anyone saw him falling off that quick, right? There have been a lot of guys who've you know, had some success very early, and people have mapped out all sorts of crazy expectations onto them, and they just didn't hit it. What makes you so confident, number one, that Scottie will, and number two, if he doesn't, what's the floor of what you think he could be in his prime?
What makes me so confident that Scottie will is just the way, like, he's so calm in his demeanor. Like, while he's a hype guy on the court, that guy is so stable in everything that he does. It just comes across as like he's as they say, he's a natural, right? He's got stage presence. Like, did you, like, a few
Vince
games
had
ago,
stage presence. Vince had crazy stage presence, like more than Scottie.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like Vince Carter, year 2, year 3, like, if were you there? Were you there for that? Were you around for that, Vince?
I mean, I wasn't there live, but I was watching. I watched every.
The
I watched
energy
every
in
Raptors
that
game.
building, the hope for this fan base, the electricity, every single game, your eyes are glued to the screen or to the court, and just watching this guy do things that you've never seen someone do.
Ridiculous.
And the idea in 2002 that by 2004 this guy might be on the trading block, by 2005 he might be a second option, by 2008 his prime would be over, and by 2020 he'd be retired with 0 championships. The concept of that, never sniffing MVP, and that 2001, that season that he had in 2001 where he had like a 7.6 or whatever VORP, leading the league, a very depleted league at the time, you know, making it to the second round with the Raptors, that would be, as an individual player, the absolute apex that he would reach as a player.
Right.
That he would go to a team that made the finals in the Nets. You know, effectively, they made the finals a couple years prior to his getting there, and they would never touch the finals with him. That he would go to Orlando a year after they make the finals, replace basically Hito Turkoglu in that rotation,
right?
And they would never make it back to the finals. Dwight would be gone, and that he would just basically morph into this like role player. And look, I have nothing but respect for Vince Carter and what he became, but there was no willingness to be the guy in him. Like there was no adamancy. That's not even a word, but it should be a word.
Yeah.
There was no I need to be the number
Right.
one guy. I need to
Right.
be, it was just I don't know. I don't know what happened. And I sometimes think about a fork in the road, because one of the things that article was talking about was, did the pandemic end Siakam? Because he was better every year, like every year. So there was two hype, and this article was written when he was struggling 2 years ago, right? He struggled every single year, by the way.
Right.
So there's not one season in the last 4 years where we haven't had 2 months of, is Siakam done?
Right.
And this was written at the end of the Tampa season this was written at the end of the Tampa season going into last season.
Right.
And effectively the question was, did the pandemic end him, or did becoming a number one option end him? In a sense that growth of upward has just stopped. 4 years is flatline. Like you can talk about 3.5 blocks plus minus last year. You can talk about more shot attempts, more playmaking, slight improvement here, but a drop off somewhere else. This is not the Siakam we had gotten accustomed to from 21, 22, 23, 24.
Right.
And so there's plenty of different explanations to this. Number one is what they said is, the pandemic happened. COVID happened to him, right? He I think he got COVID twice. He lost all that weight. He had this very negative experience with the fan base, and mentally and emotionally, it seemed like it took a lot for him to recover from that because, he was quoting Les Brown. And trust me, as someone who's been through some very hard times in my life, and you quoting Les Brown, you've been through hell,
Right.
And, so there was that. The second thing, which was he was great up until you force him to be more than what he can possibly be. That his skill set was perfectly tailored to being a second option, and that putting him in a first option role is kind of like putting Lamar Odom or Sean Marion into a first option role,
Right.
where they would not do well in that role. And then I think like the third thing that you could sort of introduce potentially is that starting basketball late, right? That incredible growth curve that a lot of athletes see from, maybe 15 to 17 or
Right.
16 to 18, that he had that, but he had that as a pro.
Yeah.
That he had
24
it
to
from like
27.
22 to 24.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that those are the three sort of options, because right now I'm seeing a guy that if I just looked objectively with not knowing anything about him and I just looked at his stats, year 1, 2, 3, 4, year 7 to me would be like a borderline MVP season. Kind of everything that they're saying he was this year, that they were saying at the beginning of the year, that's kind of where this was supposed to go.
Right.
When I look at his stats today, I'm like, these are actually worse than the stats he put up like 2 years ago, if you really think about the defensive fall off as well. So it's hard to. Yeah.
I think for him, I think it was a bit of a mind fuck for him because up until the point where he was a second option, like up until the point where he now turned into the first option, you're still working on the same, like he was still working on the same elements of his game, right? Like so he's still working on his handles, still working on his shooting, still working on finishing at the rim. Nothing's going to change. Like no part of your approach to improvement is going to change, right? But you're eventually going to hit a wall. If like there's a reason that there's only so many, super duper stars in the league, because they're rare. You can't just become it just because a spot opens on your team, right? Just because Kawhi decides not to re-sign with the team and Kyle Lowry gets traded, like that, just because that door opens for you to go through doesn't mean you're going to become that. Right. So I think is a little bit of a mind fuck for him. And then on top of that, because he became that quote unquote first option, that he was getting delusional or like not delusions of grandeur, but like he was starting to like feel himself a little bit because like, oh, look at all this money I can make. I'm the first option now. And now defenses are keying in on me. Oh shit, I can't spin anymore. oh fuck, I don't have those angles to throw the ball off the glass anymore because they've scouted that. They're not throwing doubles at me. They're giving me somebody with a little bit of size who can kind of get in my way. Like, it's like I'm to some degree. I always got annoyed when people used to hate on Bargnani, right? Because like Bargnani,
It's because you're Italian.
Well, not because it has nothing to do with Italians. It's just like he was the player that he was. Why would you hate on somebody who just can't get better? That's just who he was. Your expectation of who he should be because he was drafted first does not dictate who he is. And in that same regard, people's expectation of how they think Pascal should have developed into this number one superstar option, just because you think that doesn't mean he's going to do that. And so you shouldn't be giving him shit for that.
Someone asked what year did it take Siakam to put up Scottie Barnes numbers across the board. I mean, if you look at his per 100 numbers, right? Like right now, I'm looking at year 3 where it kind of got close to the numbers that Scottie's putting up, right? Which is, I think Scottie's like around that right now. The difference is, look at that 55% from the field, and the 37% from 3. Like those are some crazy numbers. And that's the year with Kawhi, 18-19. That's the year that he beasted.
Right.
So to those people saying, well, why can't Scottie do that with Pascal? Well, obviously there are gaps to this, right? I mean, if you just built a time machine and put Scottie in the same role that Pascal was in 2018, 2019, sure, he could do very similar things. The difference would be a 24-year-old doing it versus a 21-year-old doing it, and whatever value you assign to doing it 3 years early versus Scottie picking up the game like 10 years before him. I don't know. But I will say that when you look at these numbers, right, look at that, look at the points. Look at the rebound.
2-point percentage. Like he was shooting 60% from 2.
Yeah.
Now he's shooting 50.
Yeah, it's a 10% drop off.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's a 10% drop off because defenses are keying in on him more. And I think a lot of people look at someone like Scottie Barnes and they say, well, Scottie is now as a third option, second option, fourth option some nights. He's nowhere near as effective as Siakam was, right?
Right.
But let me be very clear with you guys. There's no chance in hell that Siakam had the type of role offensively that Scottie has right now. It was not the same. Like if Scottie was getting all of his shots on like back cuts and getting passes from Marc Gasol and shit, like, yeah, this would be a very different type of player. Like this, I mean, Pascal wasn't running point.
Right.
He wasn't right. dribble creation, and he wasn't operating this absolute horseshit offense either.
Totally.
So I think, but yeah, like when I look at these numbers, I honestly see a flat line over the last 4 years across the board. Like I'm not seeing some massive jump anywhere, right?
I think it's going to take. I think it's going to take having another play. Like it's pretty easy when you have, when you have a guy like Kawhi Leonard as the focal point of every single team's defense every single night. That's going to leave you open a shitload more. Right. Yeah. So like, that the skill set, like, I almost wonder that maybe even though this, Helio Siakam, point guard Siakam thing has gone poorly, maybe it's like actually it ends up being good for us it ends up being good for the Raptors in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly. You never know. It doesn't seem like they're going to be trading this guy away as much as I kind of wish they would if they got a good package back and for him.
No, I think this is worth noting. Look at the 3-point attempt rate. The first year that he was the first option, which was 19-20, right?
Right.
The 3-point attempt rate is at 33.1%. Last year was at 18.1. That's almost half. That's
Sorry.
almost half.
Sorry.
So look at the advanced. Look at the advanced.
Yeah.
Right. If you expand your screen pretty full.
Yeah.
So you have minutes
Oh,
played,
3-point attempt rate.
PR.
Got it.
Yeah. So your free throw attempt rate has gone through the roof this year. Like his free throw attempt rate is up like DeMar level almost, right? Rebounding has been pretty much consistent throughout his career.
Right.
Assist percentage has gone up literally every single year like clockwork. Right? Every single year assist percentage goes up. And per 100 the assists are going up every single year. But you look at his blocks and steals per 100 possessions as a rookie. 2.7 blocks, 1.5 steals per 100 possessions. Granted, not as many minutes, fine, but he was starter, man. Like he didn't start like he was a token starter in his rookie season, right?
Yeah.
He started 38 games and he spent some time in the G League, et cetera, like kind of like Christian Koloko, but way more minutes. And I mean, look at the freaking thing, man. Like, I mean, that's a crazy, like those are some impressive shot blocking numbers.
Yeah.
Look at it this year, 0.7, right? Like that's a 2 block fall off per 100 possessions. The steals are down way. This is the lowest he's averaged per 100 possessions in terms of steals. So, look at the defensive win shares, right? Like this is the lowest amount he has averaged this is the lowest defensive win share since his rookie season. Rookie season defensive win share. He was literally all defense. Like not literally all defenses and all defensive team, but like he was mainly a defensive player as a rookie.
Sure.
Look at the win shares. 1.6 win shares as a rookie. 1.2 are coming as defense on the defensive side.
Right.
Now he's completely swung to offense.
Right.
And look, like, I mean, win shares per 48 is a really good metric. This is his third worst season ever.
Right.
Since his rookie season. So this is like, you look at that Kawhi Leonard season, year 3 for him as the peak in terms of his maximized efficiency.
Yep.
That's when he was the most efficient. It's the 1 year where his true shooting percentage was above 60% because obviously he was playing with a great talent. But every other year he's in
talent,
that.
But great talent, but also all 4 other players on the court shot threes very well.
Yeah. And I mean, like, here's another way to look at this. And I think for people to get an idea of this, look at career versus year. That's how I always look at it. Like, to understand where a player is, I look at the career versus the year that they're having. So on his career, his PER is 18. Right now, he's closer to 19.7. But his true shooting percentage on his career, and this year he's shooting below his career percentage on true shooting percentage. He's below his career average on 3-point attempt rate, above his career average as a free throw shooter, below his career average in terms of a rebounder, above on assists. So you see, like, below on steals, below on blocks. He's below on turnovers, which is a good thing. He's above on usage, which is not a surprise to anybody. And his win shares per 48, unsurprisingly, he's below his career.
Right.
Find me a player who's on the upswing, who had a late start, who had this massive boom, who is below their career on win shares per 48. That's hard to do, especially in the midst of a season where half the season people have been saying he's an MVP. So one of the things that the article said was the hardest thing about the NBA is trying to figure out, are you buying this stock on the ground floor or are you buying it after it's already peaked?
Yeah.
And it's really hard to tell, man. Tobias Harris with the Clippers, like, there was some legit energy behind, oh, this guy could be like, you know, a really legit second option. And then you're seeing him with Philly and he's like an afterthought. You know, they're talking about Tyrese Maxey and James. He's a 4th option. He's been a 4th option for them, but he's paid like a 1st option.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, like, this shit could happen. So that's my biggest fear.
I hope slowly but surely Pascal is discovering that about himself. Hopefully, like, you know, okay, so we don't see what happens behind closed doors at practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hypothetically, Scottie and Pascal are getting matched up against one another in practice. Who's dominating that practice more often than not? Let's be honest.
I think it's probably
If
pretty
Scottie
even
is
right now,
checking-
but like next year, I'm pretty sure Scottie would kick his ass personally.
I mean, I think Scottie is holding more than his own in practice right now.
I'm pretty
Like-
sure it's pretty balanced. I mean, Scottie's like he's stronger.
That's-
They're both
that's-
pretty strong. I mean, like honestly, like Siakam's in a different type of strength. Like it's not base strength, so maybe it's not showing up in the post, but his upper body strength is pretty impressive. Like given how he finishes, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Scottie has some pretty weak finishes sometimes when he gets bumped off contact or whatever. Like like I don't know. Like I think Siakam has put in some serious work in the weight room. Like where he started to where he is now, Scottie kind of came in decent. Like he came in like a really big dude. So I don't know.
Right.
Look, I think I obviously like I'm not trying to debate like whether Scottie is going to be better. I think Scottie's definitely going to be better. But I just think what I wanted to understand was what is the floor for what you think Scottie can be. I think that was the question that started this out like 20 minutes ago. I don't think we ever really got to that. But
Right.
like, we all talk about the ceiling, right? But I want to talk about the floor because I think if someone had asked me this question about like Siakam, what's the ceiling, what's the floor? I think too many fans become invested in the ceiling because it's just way, way, way more exciting to talk about the ceiling,
Right.
right? Like, what's the ceiling on Shai, or what what's the floor on Shai? And it's like obviously the ceiling conversation is going to be a lot more exciting, but like, what's the floor on Scottie?
You want like a player comp?
Sure. Player comp, stat line, kind of a career arc, if you will.
He's just such a unique, like, because I mean, like, all of his player comps are too good for a floor,
Mhm.
right? Like you say, Scottie Pippen or like guys of similar size to him, or like Scottie, Magic, Kawhi. So I'm trying to think of a good floor, like. No, like I can't really think of one, to be honest, just because of his skill set is so unique. Like a guy with obvious size, with great defensive tools. He hasn't quite put the defensive side of the ball all together yet, but you can tell he's already the second best defender on a defensive minded team, right? And you, his biggest fan, has criticized his defense this year often.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it's impossible. Like who's your comp for him in terms of floor?
So the chat has mentioned Andre Iguodala. The chat has also mentioned Thaddeus Young, which is absolutely insane, by the way. Sweater God, no offense, man, that's crazy. No. Yo, like Thaddeus Young, I don't think put up a single positive box plus minus season until he was 30. You kidding me?
Right.
No. Like Thaddeus Young was like considered like I don't know. Thaddeus Young was much, much closer to a Precious Achiuwa type than whatever you think he is now. Like he's kind of like reconstructed the identity of his career at this point. Like he talks about, the numbers he's put up. He's just a playmaking wing who was like a third, fourth, fifth option pretty much throughout his career, like a role player, journeyman type, Elliot Honduras saying Boris Diaw.
Oh, bro. Boris Diaw. Come on.
Caton.
Scottie's an athlete. Like, it's a fucking...
Boris Diaw was a crazy athlete. If you saw him as a rookie, unbelievable. 6'8" point guard out of France. Oh man, I fell in love with that guy as a prospect. He eventually ended up eating himself out of the league, but
crazy.
He was interesting.
Like, Adam, I'm not even gonna attempt his last name, says offensive oriented Draymond Green. I think that's like kind of like where I had sort of set my bar.
So I like the Andre Iguodala thing, in terms of a floor for Scottie. I just think that unlike Andre, he has such a Andre's probably like a more fluid athlete. Yeah. Scottie's just a better athlete. I don't know how to explain it. Like Andre's got like a more
I think it's got more pop. Yeah, or like at
It
the
looks
depth.
a little bit more. It looks a little bit more like a wing. Scotty.
I think Iguodala had more vertical pop,
Mhm.
and Scottie has more horizontal.
Yeah.
pop.
So like, okay. So in terms of a floor for Scotty, I think like maybe like prime Kobe, and in terms of the ceiling, like Michael Jordan meets Jesus Christ. That's about right. That's about right. I mean,
Something like that. If JC could ball, who would he be?
Jesus Christ was about 5'1", man. Just like saying, or maybe he was like 4'6". I don't know how short people were back then.
True.
Yo, for real though, I mean, not to be blasphemous here, I think in terms of like floor for Scotty, I'm saying like if all goes to hell and it just does not work for him, I see um
Okay, I got one.
a playmaking. Ooh, no, that might be crazy. Okay, share what you got. What you got?
Sabonis. I see that as his floor.
Sabonis, like a more athletic Domantas
Yes.
Sabonis.
Yes. Just like a guy with a lot of vision, good size, can bully people.
Mm-hmm.
Great vision, great passer, high IQ, better defender.
Mm-hmm.
What am I missing?
I don't know, man. I still think like my Jesus Christ meets Michael Jordan thing needs a deep rewind. Honestly,
sorry,
I think the
was
best
my
comparison would be like a Wilt Chamberlain meets Steph Curry.
Right.
Like
Sure.
like the most complicated prospect in NBA history.
That's fun.
Oh my God. Honestly, my comp for him would be our Andre Iguodala meets Lamar Odom. I think that's a pretty fair comp.
That's
to be
your
honest,
floor.
that's my floor for him.
Okay.
Right. So,
That's
and in
fair.
terms of how a career would look in that, win a lot, be a part of a team, be a two-way guy, probably make a couple of all-star teams, crack 20, 22 points per game a few times in your career, end up retiring not as a Hall of Famer, not as a guy who gets his jersey retired, but as a guy, who had like a solid 13 years in the NBA.
Right.
I think that's, sort of the floor. In terms
I'd
of the
say so.
ceiling, I definitely think like a playmaking version of a Kawhi Leonard is where he's going to trend to, and I really hope he gets there sooner. As much as I want to like learn from my mistakes of the past and be more patient, there's still a part of me that's just like, yo, shit turns on fast. Like sometimes players, like one of the most interesting things, and I think this is why fan bases gravitate towards draft picks, is there is an unpredictability with young players where they turn on a switch and it doesn't turn off for like 6 years.
Right.
Like they figure something out, something clicks, some amount of work that they've been putting in for a couple of years just clicks, and you just don't know what hit you, but they just never turn it back. I've seen players do this. I've seen players just it's a switch. Sometimes it turns on over and off season.
Right.
Sometimes it turns on mid season. And I would be very interested to see if Scottie can take that sort of step mid season, maybe, hopefully in the next 12 games, maybe in the first, we don't know if like he just comes out in the playoffs and averages 23 points per game and we're all just standing like, where the hell was this all year?
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't know, but he's fully capable of it.
Right. Would you say that that Giannis light is a good floor for him?
No, because I just think he's so much more offensively talented and so much less physically gifted than Giannis that the comparison almost like falls apart. I believe I'd never heard of anyone compare him to Giannis before I did it 2 years ago. Never. I never heard this comp, and I just wanted, personally, as a fan of his coming out of Florida State, I just wanted to boost his draft stock. I wanted him to go higher. I wanted him to have a better, draft comp. And so right before the draft, I think like 2-3 months before the draft, I started to get on my high horse and just say, not Draymond. He's much closer to Giannis. He's much closer to Kawhi. You're going to see. You're all going to be wrong. Blah, 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 blah. Like a child, basically just yelling at the internet. So yeah, but like I have to appreciate Giannis like for what he is, which is like maybe I just think Giannis's offense is just so like even when I watch him play, like sometimes the teams try to trap him, like his vision is still limited. His handle is still limited. His shooting is still limited.
Right.
I think Scottie would get much further, to be honest, in terms of talent, like in terms of like vision, talent, feel for the game, all that stuff. Physically, I don't think he'll ever touch Giannis. And that's why I say like Kawhi with, goddamn, like Kawhi without vision was being compared to like he was being called the best player in the game.
Yeah.
While LeBron was still in his prime.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I mean, my God, like that player with even a Lamar Odom level vision is crazy to think about.
Right.
So
it's just whether or not he can ever develop the J. That's the big
I
thing.
mean, like, was Kobe a great jump shooter? Was Tracy a great jump shooter? Was Michael a great jump shooter? I mean, they're good. Like they didn't have to become Steph Curry. I think he just become competent from like 3 or 4 spots. Once he's good at those 3 or 4 spots, there's not a lot you can do with him in those 3 or 4 spots.
I think what you're I get what you're saying about Kobe and T-Mac and these guys. The only thing with those guys is that they were like money from the mid-range, right? And so and it's the same with Kawhi. And so even if he can get to like a 34-35% three-point shooter career, as long as he's money from the mid-range, then he should be, he should reach elite territory in terms of like ranking overall in the league. And I think he can get there. I think everybody was like, it's the information age, and everybody's putting out, mixtapes of themselves and what they're doing on off season and Rico Hines runs and every single thing. And you start to see like, whoa, Scottie's he's chucking from 3 and they're going in. Holy shit. Could that translate to the season? And then then everybody was like a little bit let down when his 3 didn't start dropping at the rate that everybody thought, to the point where idiots like Doug Smith were like questioning his work ethic and like all that stupid shit.
Yeah.
But you can't just expect it to happen in year 2. Sometimes it happens for guys in year 3, sometimes in year 5. DeMar DeRozan, when did he become a star player? Was it in his 5th year, 6th year, something like that? It was essentially after Rudy Gay got traded. So whenever that was.
That was 3rd year, if I'm not mistaken.
Really? Oh man.
3rd, 4th year, yeah.
Okay.
John Lemming here with if we traded Pascal for Jeremy Grant, he will give us the same production. I don't think so. I think Grant's a better shooter. I think Pascal's a way better playmaker, and I think they're now similar defenders. Pascal used to be a way better defender. Now I'd say they're similar, which kind of sucks.
I would take Jeremy Grant and a pick, or Jeremy Grant and Shaden Sharp for Pascal if that was being offered. I don't think they would offer that.
Yeah, I would too.
But to your point earlier, Jeremy Grant is more jam, whereas Pascal is more almond butter.
Oh no, he's gonna be called almond butter now, isn't he? We got Blanky, and almond butter, and I'm the biggest hater in the world.
Too late, my friend.
Oh no.
Well, you did also say that he is a better defender than Michael Jordan. So there you go.
I did not. I said Pippen was. I want to make sure that people understand that Scottie Pippen was a better defender than Michael Jordan for a couple of years. I think Michael Jordan is a beast defender. Honestly,
I was just shit talking to you. I know. That's
I got to tell you, I think I was looking at DeMar's career. I was very shocked to see the impact that he's made, limited impact he's made. Do you know how long it was before DeMar posted a positive box plus minus season? It's like 5 years.
Right.
That was crazy. Like,
Right.
he was one of my favorite. Like, I liked him a lot. I did not shit on him. I liked him a lot. I thought he was, yeah. Like, I gotta tell you, like, as I focus more on analytics, I find myself like focusing less on the eye test, and like it's hard to see a guy like, be a bad defender, be inefficient offensively, but then he does like 5 or 6 things a game where you're just like, ooh, this guy's amazing. You know what I mean? Like, it looks smooth, but it's not that effective.
DeMar got really good the year, like I can't remember if it was at the beginning of the season or at the end of the prior season, but there was one interview that he did where he said, yeah, like I'm a really good scorer now, but my next goal is to become more efficient. And
Mhm.
whatever that was, that next season he did actually become more efficient.
He
and
did.
and then people started talking about him and Kyle Lowry being the best backcourt in all of basketball, right? And
Right.
and they were like legitimately good, and that team put Toronto on the map.
So
Right.
DeMar's advanced stats are super interesting to look at, if you're curious. Like, what a weird career he's had. I'm gonna put it on the screen for a second.
Crazy,
It's
eh?
such a strange career, honestly. Here, look at this.
I hope he gets a chip. I feel bad for that dude.
Don't feel too bad. But yeah,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying though.
Yeah.
But look at this. Just look at this from an advanced stats point of view. As in his first 3 years, he was negative 2.8, negative 2.5, negative 2.7 box plus minus. He was negative on offense and defense for the first 4 years.
Right.
It took him until year 5 to be positive. And the first year he was positive, he became an all-star. And that's also, ironically, the first year the Raptors made the playoffs, right? 13-14?
Is that one where they got swept by Washington?
No. The first year they made the playoffs, they faced the Nets.
Oh, right, and they lost to Paul Pierce there.
Yep.
Right.
The first of many. It was the Fuck Brooklyn series.
Right.
But I mean, like, look at,
I was there for that.
Nice. So I mean, like, look at the win shares per 48, like the box plus minus, like he got like, and then he has that 1 year which is a uptick of, so in his first 6 seasons, notice, and this is where I say, like, people really need to start paying attention to box plus minus a little bit more. Look at the all-star signs, right? And look at the box plus minus, right? Every time he put up a positive box plus minus on a winning team, he was named to an all-star team.
Yeah.
Every single time, all 6 years. That's so interesting to me. And in terms of defensive box plus minus, he has literally been positive 2 times. 2018, 2019 with the Spurs first year, and this year. 0.1.
And 0.1 both years.
And that shows you how bad he's been on defense. And his best offensive season in terms of box plus minus was the 16-17 year with the Raptors, which was 4.1.
Right.
But because he was so bad defensively that year, his highest box plus minus ever. So ironically, his highest box plus minus ever, which was 3.1, which was the last year at San Antonio.
Yeah.
Ironically, that is lower than Pascal Siakam's career high box plus minus last year, which was 3.5.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I mean, in a really weird way, as much as I like to compare them, peak Siakam is slightly better than peak DeRozan.
Well,
Slightly.
let's hope we can get let's hope we can somehow shoehorn peak Siakam back into the mix somehow. But yeah, no, your comp, your peanut butter and almond butter comp might just be a little too accurate. I don't know that he and Scottie can coexist together on a true contending team.
Yeah. We have one more caller somehow, Owen. But I'm just seeing a white screen. I'm just gonna add him to our stream here. Hey, Owen, what's up?
Not much.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How about you?
Not too bad. You're a first-time caller. That's cool.
I'm hearing double audio. Is there? I've heard you say a way to fix that.
You're hearing double audio. What do you mean?
Like every time I talk, I hear like double of myself.
You want to try leaving and coming back? Hang on. Let's try that. Does that work? Is that better? Do you have headphones?
Yeah, maybe I have headphones.
Oh no, more of those.
It's funny to be talking to you right now because I feel like I've been watching you on my phone for such a long time. It's funny to be.
Oh, that's cool, man. Okay. Vincent saying your sound is gone for me. Is my sound's gone? Oh my God,
No,
weird.
it's back. It's back. I
Cool.
just popped my AirPods in.
Cool. Okay, everyone's got AirPods but me. I got my big headphones. Anyways, Owen, what's up, man? Can Owen not hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah. So what's up, man? What'd you think of the
Not
game
much.
tonight?
No, I don't know. I thought I'd call in, see what was going on.
No. Someone said Joe Wieskamp. What's up, dude? That's funny. And
Come on.
and yeah. What'd you think of Pascal Siakam's game tonight?
I thought it was a good game. I actually didn't get a chance to watch the game, but I saw the highlights, and I think Pascal just has a tendency to like just go like into double teams and jump and pass back, which I don't know. Every time I watch,
Yeah. That's
Cringy
interesting.
is the word.
Is it cringy?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think he set the tone early for this team, as I mentioned early in the live. I genuinely think this is one of his better games. It's a little bit disingenuous when you look at the stats, but I think overall, given where he's been trending, like 15, 16 points per game over the last 5-6 games, I think this was a good bounce back for him. Yeah.
I agree.
I think my audio might still have a problem because I'm hearing like loops right now of you talking. So maybe
No
I might try
worries.
leaving and joining again if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Try again, man. That's cool. Just try to leave the studio and then come back. Yeah. Anyways, Vince, it has been very nice talking to you. Any
Yeah, bro.
final thoughts, bud?
No, oh shit! I did have one more question for you because I didn't get to watch your entire stream that you did. I saw the first 10 minutes of it, but then I had to get to something else. The thought of the Raps trading their first round pick next year in order to save money.
Mm-hmm.
Did you spend a good time of this stream talking about that at all?
I want to say I spent about 10 minutes to 5 minutes talking about why I don't want that to happen, but that it could happen because of the cost of bringing back all these players and potentially being right at the tax apron and not wanting to go into the tax, and potentially also not having a roster spot to develop a pick that high, and potentially some other team valuing some player enough to give you something really tangible to use. Like right now, you have Precious Achiuwa, potentially Chris Boucher. You have a lot of players that could be on the block to be moved. So I think like it's entirely possible that you could package that pick with something and get something back. And if you're already, with Jakob, with Pascal, with Fred, if you're expecting Scottie to take the next step, very easily you could package that pick. I don't want them to, but it's very difficult for me to.
Don't.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I really hope they don't. I hope they exercise whatever else. Like, I mean, I don't hate Gary, but if he has to go, he has to be a casualty of war. So be it. I think
after he puts up 23 points for you tonight, that's too bad. I think his skill set is very valuable, man. Anyway, that's all good. Okay,
all right,
we're gonna wrap up with Owen, and then we're gonna call it a stream. All right, cheers.
Yeah,
man.
bro.
Peace.
Chat soon. Take care.
See ya. Bye. All right, Owen, is it better now?
Yeah, I think the problem was I had the YouTube video going at the same time as the studio, so it was
Oh,
messing up my
that
audio.
makes
Yeah, because I
1000%
was just hearing
sense.
loops myself, and I was a little confused.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so tell us about yourself. Tell us about yourself. Are
So
you
I'm actually from the or like I was born in Canada, but moved to the United States when I was 8. So,
cool? Whereabouts in the United States?
but kind of kept the Raptors as a I don't know as a fan.
I'm saying whereabouts in the United States. Like I'm a
Oh,
custom
oh
I'm
yeah,
a customs agent. You know, I'm like whereabouts in the United States. What's your purpose to visit? Anyways,
yeah. So kind of bounced around a little bit. Right now I'm actually in college at CU Boulder.
cool. Very nice.
Yeah,
I
but
bounced around the United States a bit myself. And you still follow the Raptors because you're from
yes,
here.
yes,
What other
but
teams do you like to follow?
I've been watching the Nuggets a lot lately, just being in Colorado and stuff, and they've been a great team to watch all season.
Yeah, I agree. It's beautiful basketball. You must be like tearing your hair out, like trying to
No,
look at the
because
Raptors and then the Nuggets. Raptors
no,
and
yeah,
Nuggets. It's
because
very, very
the
different teams.
when the Nuggets played in Denver, like a couple weeks ago,
You
like
mean the Raptors played in Denver?
the
Yeah.
Raptors played in Denver. Yes, yeah. We went to the game, me and my roommates, and they're both Nugget fans, and I thought we were gonna get the win, and then slipped away.
And then Scottie Barnes gets ejected. Who's your favorite player on the Raptors?
Favorite player on the Raptors? I'd probably, mm, I don't know. I'd like this. I Before this season, I probably would have said Pascal or Fred, but I feel like just watching them this year, I think it's just been, I don't know, it's just been a little different. But
Hmm.
I like the way Sky's been playing, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say you say Fred right now. I'm booting you off the chat.
No, yeah, yeah,
I'm
that's
kidding.
what.
I wouldn't do that. There have been plenty of Fred fans here. Fred fans are welcome. Pascal fans are obviously welcome here. And what do you think if you had to pick between Gary, Fred, Jakob, if you could only keep two of those guys this offseason, who would you pick?
Well, I think it just depends on the contracts we pay them, because if we're paying Fred more than like if we're paying Fred more than like 25 mil a year,
Hmm.
I'm thinking that's probably not going to be that good of a contract for the team. But I don't know if we can
He
get
definitely is getting it.
if we can get yeah, but that's why I thought we should have traded him at the deadline.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've been liking the way Yaka's been playing lately. I don't know.
He's been really good. Yeah, I think Jakob will be the cheapest of the three just because of the position he plays, and and I think ironically he's also the most impactful of the three in terms of
Yeah.
actual impact on winning and losing. But yeah, non-shooters are not like Isaiah Hartenstein last year, had a beast year for the Clippers, off the bench, granted,
Hmm.
and he ended up signing for about $6 or $7 million with the Knicks, and he was better at the rim defensively than Jakob. Granted, a little bit worse offensively, but his analytics were off the charts. So
Yeah.
I'm not too worried that Jakob's going to cost like 25 million or something crazy like that. Someone the other day said, "What if Jakob cost a max?" I think that's just them going insane. I think it'll be under 20 and above 12, above
But
14.
but realistically, what do you expect at the end of the season for the Raptors to be doing?
Sorry, this comment just made me laugh.
That is funny.
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Like I don't know. Going like right now, my expectations are we go into the play-in. Like my head right now, we win the play-in, we play the Celtics or the Bucks and get our
Destroyed.
butts smoked,
Okay.
and then we're kind of in the same spot we were.
So I did a bit of a dive into the Celtics. Now, I'm not saying we can beat the Celtics. I definitely do not think that. But that team has really fallen off. And
Yeah.
look, that team has shown me in years past that they have their issues internally.
Hmm.
They would not be the first team to start out a season really like in beast mode and disintegrate at some
Well,
point.
you could say it's kind of similar to the Nuggets right now because they're slumping. I don't know. Would you want to play the Nuggets right now in the playoffs?
I would prefer to play the Nuggets than to play um what's one team in the West that I'm actually legitimately scared of? I got to tell
The
you, like,
Kings?
no, I'm not. I'm not afraid of the Kings. A healthy Phoenix team kind of scares me just because of Kevin Durant. The only team in the East right now that really legitimately terrifies me. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't want to be a prisoner at the moment. The Celtics are still a really good team.
Yeah.
They just don't feel unbeatable. Maybe not for the Raptors. Maybe for the Raptors, they're completely unbeatable, and the Raptors will obviously self-implode, and the Celtics will definitely be better. And, Jason Tatum and, Jaylen Brown will remind Pascal Siakam what the bubble was, all over again. I don't know. But I am saying that if there was a team that had the defenders to give Jason Tatum or Giannis Antetokounmpo the series from hell, it is the Raptors. Personnel-wise. Not
Personnel?
Yeah, in terms of the personnel that we could throw at those guys, like throwing Precious Achiuwa out there and saying, okay, your job for 15 minutes a night is just go and make Jason Tatum have the worst game of his life. He can do it.
Yeah.
He can 100% do it. Like he's very capable. OG Anunoby, Scottie Barnes, Pascal Siakam, if he's engaged. These are 4 guys that, most teams don't have 2 guys like this. You have 4, So I don't know. The Raptors have been so bad at shooting the basketball. And shooting is all about variance. But of late, they've been better. They've been much better shooting the ball lately.
It seems like to me, as like the average fan, like I'm just like, oh, we put Joe Wieskamp in, and our 3-point shooting gets better. But I don't really know what Nick Nurse is thinking in that perspective. You know what I'm saying?
We should probably hire you as a coach. Put Joe Wieskamp in the game.
Wow.
Look, I think Joe Wieskamp would help, but I think also, you got to consider. I mean, I think he's a pretty decent defender too. That's the funny thing, right? So honestly, him not playing or playing might just be trust, might just be experience, might just be politics. But yeah, like I would way rather play him over Will Barton right now. And then that might seem like a very hot take to some people because Will Barton has been really good. But for me, there's always that eye to development. Like I don't want to play a 32-year-old over a 23-year-old unless the 32-year-old is twice the player the 32-year-old is.
And wait, you might have to help me out. But what was the contract we signed Will Barton to? Was it just the end of the year?
It's a minimum. It's a minimum.
Okay. So at the end of the season, he'll be a free agent, and
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, he is. And then for Joe Wieskamp, he's on a minimum that's partially guaranteed for next year, or almost entirely non-guaranteed for next year. They just have to waive him before a certain period of time. But yeah, I mean they have options with Joe. I think he's good. I think I think he could help. But yeah, I mean, the 3-point shooting will get better when the guys are looking and taking better shots, and when you have actions that create better threes. But yeah, I mean, it's gotten better of late.
Problem then? Or you think is it a coaching problem then? That the reason why our rotations are a bit off?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a coaching problem. I think it's a one guy not buying in problem. Sometimes I think it's shooting variance problem. I think it's not having auto is a problem. I think some guys are just. I mean, I'm trying to look across. Like Fred's having a worse season last year. OG's having they're all having a worse season last year. I cannot think of one player on this team off the top of my head who's having a better season than they had last year, other than Jakob Poeltl.
I think it's crazy to think of like I remember watching a video of you saying like Fred said he was going to start off the season slow, then turn up at the end of the season, or like
he
along
has
those lines, and he has. That's the thing.
He totally has. Like he said that his plan for the season was that he didn't want a repeat of last season where he tapered off at the end, because that's all people remember, right?
Yeah,
people definitely only remember the end. So if you start out the season as an MVP candidate and you close the season basically walking off the court in the Philly series, basically unable to walk, people remember the last thing.
So Fred's definitely raised his stock then. Oh, like
he has. And like I would have laughed till I was like, I would have spit my coffee out laughing 3 months ago if someone had told me he's still in contention for a max contract.
Yeah.
He's put himself back into contention for a max contract now. He's gonna get something close to a max from someone. I don't know if he'll get a max, but he should be probably looking at that Jalen Brunson contract and saying, I want at least that. I don't think he's gonna get Tyler Hero money, but I think he'll get at least Jalen Brunson money. That's about what, $100 million across 4 years.
Yeah. But if I'm a Raptors fan, I don't know if I want to do that personally.
I wouldn't want to do that either. And honestly, but I was wrong about Fred 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 2 months ago. I've never been right about Fred.
But as you said, like
The
I
only
think
time
like
I've ever been right about Fred is when I said when he started out last year, I was like, he's not capable of sustaining this throughout the season. He's not a point guard. He's not a superstar. Whatever. He's been better. I don't know, man. Like it's such a weird thing with him because it's like I'm an analytics guy and he has great analytics, and I like shooters and he shoots, and I like pesky disruptive defenders and he's a pesky disruptive defender, and then he opens his mouth and he talks and I just don't like him.
I think you hit the
It's
nail on the head though when you said like just because no offense to like our shorter basketball players, but like once they lose that step, it's just they're not the same player as they used to be.
his game has never been predicated on speed and burst anyway. And honestly, he's doing all sorts of like finishes at the rim now where he's been a little bit better there. He's just been a little bit better at the rim than he was last year. He's still not a good paint finisher. Vince makes a really good point. Jalen Brunson is a better player than Fred because of the way better rim finishing. Yeah, man, he shoots like 10% better from the field than him. Like obviously, he's also this year he's a like he's comparable 3-point shooter as well. I think he's a better 3-point shooter and a better rim finisher this year. So yeah,
So
like
let's just say Fred VanVleet's 3 inches taller. What would you rate him?
much better. Much better.
Much
I
better?
used, I once told someone with a straight face, if Fred VanVleet was 6'6", I think he'd be a top 10 player in the NBA.
Straight face, just
Yeah, I really believe that his combination of like because look, I've seen players like Fred before. I have like at the collegiate level, and they were just like they were strong, they were crafty, they had like skills, they were they had the sort of like heavy hands, they were a good lateral quickness, they played really hard, they could shoot, and yeah, like I've always compared Fred VanVleet to a shorter Klay Thompson, and honestly, like he has more creativity than Klay. He's a better passer than Klay, and right now he's probably like on par, if not better, defender than Klay after all the injuries Klay's gone through. Yeah, if
on
he was
par or better than Clay right now. You think?
as a defender,
As the I like to yeah, I definitely have not watched that much Golden State basketball this year, but I don't know. I feel like I've always
Klay
had like
Thompson's
the
fallen off a lot as a defender, but I would like to look at it for a second. A Klay Thompson defense, because look, Klay Thompson prime, yeah, like my God, like
yeah.
as a defender, two-way player. I mean, he wasn't getting like big time blocks and steals, but he was like honestly one of the best defenders in the NBA, and I loved watching him play. That sort of two-way 3-and-D. He's like the perfect 3-and-D player, but he was so much more than that. Remember that. But yeah, like right now, let me just look at it here. So his defense, yeah, man, he's a 17th percentile defender right now.
Dang, that's crazy.
17th percentile. And I think Fred's probably 75th to 82nd. Yeah. Fred's way better.
Wow, that
Way, way better.
but it's crazy. Like I feel like the numbers they show you on like TV or stuff like that, they don't show you the important stuff sometimes.
They really don't. Here, I'm going to put it on screen so people can sort of see what I'm looking at here. One sec. So these are Klay Thompson's sort of defensive numbers here. You have to focus on the left side of the screen. Boom. So his
These are Klay
crafted,
Thompson's.
yeah. So in terms of deflections, he's 32nd percentile as a rebounder, defensive rebounder, 16th percentile, rim defense, 16th percentile, rim frequency, block percentage, versatility, 81st percentile. And yeah, like overall, like not great. 17th percentile is like worse than Gary Trent Jr. So, I mean, like, look, his defense falling off a cliff is a really big reason why the Golden State Warriors aren't the Golden State Warriors. His defense wasn't great last year either. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't great, but it was a little bit better than this.
Just out of curiosity, what website were you looking at to find those stats?
Crafted NBA.
Is that the go-to for analytical NBA data?
No.
Or
538 is
530?
probably 538 dunks and threes. NBA.com ironically has like great statistics that you can look at for free as well. I just like the way that Crafted puts it together in a graph that I can share very easily on here for you guys.
Yeah.
And what Crafted does is it looks at a lot of popular models like Defensive Raptor, and it puts it all together. And
has the similarity score as well.
Yeah, that in all websites have similarity scores, and most of them are absolutely horseshit. But yeah,
You don't think Klay Thompson's as good of a defender as Patty Mills?
no, I don't. I don't. I mean, honestly, I can't say I've ever thought about Patty Mills' defense in the last 2 years, so I can't even answer that with. Do you mind if we
Yeah.
bring someone else on right now?
No, yeah, totally.
Hang
All
on.
good.
Lane, what's up,
Yo,
man?
what's up, man? What's up?
What's going on? We got the American boys here. We got Cleveland and Colorado
Whoa,
and
Cleveland,
and
that's disrespectful.
my
Columbus,
bad.
Ohio.
My bad.
OHIO. There we go.
Okay.
But are you a Cleveland fan?
Oh, no. Heck no. I'm not a Cavs fan. I'm a Browns fan, and that's where I draw the line with that state. Or that city. I'm sorry.
So then, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Boulder meet Columbus. What's up?
What's up? Actually, I have a kid on my team who is going to go to Boulder next year.
Nice.
To play some baseball. So
It's a good school. Anyone that's watching this live stream, Boulder, double thumbs up.
Boulder is not paying for this subscription. Cancel that. No one go to Boulder ever.
Cancel. Let's cancel.
Can't cancel it. No one go to Boulder ever. Okay. All right. Okay. What's up, Lane? What's going on?
Nothing much. I know last time I was on, I kind of caused a scene, so I'm sorry. But I've been
caused a scene.
Yeah, because I brought up something that a lot of American media is talking about, and I think
I think that's as much me being a dick as you bringing up anything. But yeah, it's cool. Go on.
I was just trying to spark a conversation about how like some people overreact and how we are so quick like to go off of one game, and everybody is. But that was more my point than anything. So I just want to apologize for that.
No worries. Yeah, go on.
I'm hearing so as the new CBA, we're gonna see a salary cap increase, and I'm hearing that the salary cap could increase as much as $25 million. I don't know if you've heard anything like that, or what your thoughts on that are.
Yep, I have. And yes, it could. And yes, like always, teams are going to lose their minds and they're going to start paying people way more than they're worth.
Yes.
And
Nerlens Noel back again.
Alan Crabb.
That's gotta be ridiculous. Yeah.
Timothy Mozgov, but also Kevin Durant. That was what that created. I would like to see cap smoothing this time around. I don't want to see teams have I don't trust teams. Teams are stupid. Like they give them like $30 million extra one summer and they're gonna sign Gary Trent Jr. to a max, Fred to. This is not the season you want to have a whole bunch of free agents.
Exactly.
Or is it next season that you don't want to have a lot of free
agents? It's
next
season. That's why I've been like, I see people on Facebook all the time talk about why a Pascal Siakam $30 million contract could kill you. And my whole rebuttal is under this current cap, yes, it could.
But under the next cap,
under the next cap, a Pascal. Can you hear me? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, I'm sorry. One of my friends just called me and I had to hang up. But under the next cap, Pascal Siakam $30 million contract is a perfect number.
But he's not settling for 30, bro. This is a non-starter. 30 is not the number that we should be focusing on. The number that he's talking about is in the 40s and 50s.
If you think, if not to be like or anything, but if you're in Pascal Siakam's head right now, what do you think the most comparable player to him is right now in terms of money wise? Like who do you think he's looking at as
Giannis.
like Giannis? You think?
Yeah, I think he's looking at Giannis. I think he's looking at Joel Embiid. I think he's looking at these guys because, he's probably seeing himself in that. You don't talk about yourself a top 5 player in the league unless you see yourself as at least a top 10 player in the league. He probably, if you put a gun to his head and said, hey, are you a top 10 player in the league? Do you believe that? He'd probably tell you yes. And he's probably not looking at the same numbers we are. He's probably not looking at his box plus minus. He's looking at his points per game because that's the number that's going to give him the information that he wants to believe about himself. Do I think that he look 30 million is not a question. It's not a question. Pascal Siakam, of course he's worth 30 million. The question is he worth 60 million, 55 million, 48 million? Because these are the numbers on that next contract. I looked at a number, I believe it was 296 million or 278 million for 5 years. You do the math on that. That's over $50 million a year, man.
That's insane.
So what do you think the odds are? right now the Raptors trade him during the offseason.
But whoever trades for him has to eventually sign him to a contract as well. They have to agree to an extension. No one's going to trade him without
So then that
confirming
lowers
with
his
him.
value then.
Of course it lowers his value. In my opinion, it lowers his value, especially if the number that he's wanting is off from where the market values him. And if we hear the OG Anunoby, Scottie Barnes, trade rumors, not trade rumors about Scottie, but like how the league values these two guys versus how the league valued Siakam. Like, you don't think you had all those months of, discussions with Brooklyn, right? And you weren't dangling Siakam. Let's be real. You were dangling Siakam. There's only one realistic package that they could have taken if Scottie was not involved, and it was with Siakam. They chose Mikal Bridges. They chose Mikal Bridges and picks. So that kind of gives you an idea of how they saw it. I don't know if the rest of the league agrees with that, or if the rest of the league agrees with the Phoenix, not the Phoenix broadcast team, the OKC broadcast team, that he's kind of on par with Shai, or if maybe the truth is somewhere in between, that he's a little bit better than Mikal Bridges and, worse than Shai. Is he a top 18 player? I don't know, top 20, top 25, but whoever trades for him is going to have to, if someone trades for him, they're going to have to agree to a number with his agent before, because no one's trading for him and then being like, oh, we're not going to extend you.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I don't think 35 million kills you. And if the CBA
what about 45?
45 does. Unfortunately, 45 does.
That's
me,
what he wants.
He's
making 35 right now.
I'm a huge Pascal Siakam fan. You know this. I love everybody on the team. I love everybody on the team.
Is he your favorite player?
Is he my favorite player? I don't have a favorite player right now. After they broke my heart trading DeRozan, I won't have a favorite player on the Raptors. I support the team, but I try to stay even keel on all the players. I'm not too low on anybody. When Fred VanVleet was in his slump, you know this. I said he's not as bad as he was in his slump. When Scottie
I'm just putting up DeRozan's advanced stats to troll you.
I know. DeMar got me into Toronto basketball. I love him. He was classy.
Was it the season that he put up negative 2.8 box plus minus, or the season he put up negative 2.5 box plus minus, or was it the season after that when he put negative 2.7 box plus minus that you fell in love with him the most?
I think it was 1.7, but I was like 13. And
Rob's asking the hard-hitting questions right now.
I'm obviously kidding. I mean, look, here's the thing. I think that basketball is a sport that lends itself very well to analytics, partially because it's also a sport where, in my opinion, and again, this is not someone who doesn't coach baseball, or I think it's the sport with the most jaw-dropping athletes.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, I'm so glad you agree, because I've heard some people say that American football has more jaw-dropping athletes, and I'm just like, I don't think so.
I would say more athleticism, but I think basketball, when you have 7-foot guys jumping out the gym, you look at Jakob Poeltl, for example. If you put Jakob Poeltl up against the biggest guy in the NFL, Jakob Poeltl's making him look like a midget. To say that very, very, like, the nicest way I can. He's making him look like a midget.
Can't say that word.
I'm sorry, my fault.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, this is we're gonna cancel you now. Okay, no, I understand what you're saying. Just in case there are some small people listening right now, I don't want to be involved in another controversy. Okay, so my point here is that when players are this athletic and there's this wow factor to how they play, and of course the average North American male being about 5'10", 5'11", is just watching these athletes do these things, it's sometimes impossible to distance how awesome what they're doing is from how consistently and how effectively they're doing it, right? Because let's be honest, what Brooke Lopez and Robin Lopez do as basketball players is not nearly as exciting as what Giannis Antetokounmpo does as a basketball player, or what Paul George or Jaylen Brown do as basketball players, right? And so often, sometimes you'll have a guy like a Jerry Stackhouse, who I like to bring up quite often on this channel as a poster child for ineffective basketball, where that player will put up like mammoth numbers. I was looking at his per 100 possessions. I think he had a season where he averaged 38 points per 100 possessions. Had one season really where he was a solid, like all NBA type, which was I think 2000, 2001 in Detroit, where he was 5 blocks plus minus. All the other seasons, he was massively ineffective, massively inefficient. But man, when you listen to people talk about Jerry Stackhouse, like on the basketball court, they rated him hard. Why? Bucket getter, smooth, athletic, 6'6", right? Former high lottery pick. These are all like, it's a sort of illusion, like an optical illusion and I think the analytics sort of cut through that a little bit. And they're just like, hey, I know that Nikola Jokic is this pudgy guy who doesn't do anything super flashy. And, but 13 bucks plus minus is like the greatest offensive player of all time. And,
Yep.
I know DeMar DeRozan is a super smooth, guy with amazing footwork, but he's negative defensive box plus minus. He has a negative Raptor, and what he's doing isn't really impacting score. So I think analytics have a place in the NBA, and I know that some people just kind of write them off as for nerds, but I think they can cut through a lot of the noise.
No, for sure. I think there's a huge difference though between advanced analytics from role players and superstars. Like, there's a guy I want everybody to know about because he's a Buckeye. Keita Bates-Diop plays for the Spurs. He's a starter, massively efficient on that team. You put him on the Milwaukee Bucks, yeah, everybody knows him. Everybody's gonna look. He's gonna be like another Brook Lopez. I promise you. Not that he plays the same position or plays the same way, but he's just gonna fit in that smoothly. I mean, it's crazy, but some of these guys on these bad teams, how their value just gets ruined. Like Terrence Ross, for example, he's a starter on the Raptors. He averaged about 15 points a game when he was here. Went to the Magic, and everyone forgot about him for years. I mean, he just felt like he was forgotten about.
Why do you think Terrence Ross is a good player?
I never said Terrence Ross was a good player. I'm just saying he was on a good team, so people talked about him. Terrence Ross leaves a good team, goes to a bad team, puts up pretty much the same stats, and people just forget about him.
So just to sort of correct the record here, as a Raptor, he averaged 6 points, 10.9 points, 9.8 points, 9.9 points.
In his
Pardon?
In best season? Why do I remember
his best season with the Raptors was 11 points per game. And he shot 36% from 3 that year. So his best, and he shot 43.7% from the field. So to put that in perspective, his best season with the Raptors is like...
Was that the 14-15 season?
That was the 15-16. No, sorry, the 16-17 season.
Okay. Yeah, I remember him being so much more like of a scorer.
He's literally only cracked 15 points per game twice, both times with Orlando. But to put his impact into like proper consideration here, because we talked about DeMar being negative box plus minus for his entire, start of his career. Terrence Ross had two positive box plus minus seasons for the Raptors, 0.3 in 2015, 2016, and 1.2. He has literally never cracked 1.5 box plus minus ever. He's been negative every year with the Magic, with the exception of, every year with the Magic he was negative. This year with the Phoenix Suns in 8 games, he is 1.5 plus.
Yeah.
So basically, like, you want to say a bust for an 8th overall pick? That wouldn't be far off from the truth.
For sure. But I just felt like when he was on the Raptors, it's that 13-14, 14-15, 15-16 season, it felt like he was just
talked about more?
Relevant in the NBA.
But how much of being relevant is number one being a top 8, top 10 pick, and
no, I'm not saying
people projecting future upside, and then also number 2 being on a good team. Obviously, you're going to be talked about more.
Right.
I'm winning a dunk contest. I feel like that would help.
I'm trying
that
to say
too. That too.
Say like all the guys who are efficient and good on bad teams right now just don't get talked about. That's why I brought up the Keita Bates-Diop example because
But at what point are you on a bad team, and at what point are you part of the reason the team is bad? How can you distance the player from the team?
Role player.
Like people want to talk about like Jeremy Grant as a first option in Detroit, and now they want to talk about Jeremy Grant as like a second option in Portland. Guess what? Detroit was a lottery team. Portland is a lottery team. What does that say about Jeremy Grant? How can you distance that? Like, I mean, if you look analytics, you look at just shooting percentage, you watch one game of him, you're like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. Well, how much of that is just a projection of what you want to see in him, and how much of that is real? Because how can you distance him being on two really bad teams. One where he was the first option because he wanted to be the first option. Now one where he's clearly the second option or third option behind Simons and Dame Lillard, who's having a ball out season. Like, I think it's difficult. Like, people still talk about Dame and he's on a losing team. People still talk about Jeremy Grant and he's on a losing team. Why? It's like at some point, the NBA media landscape, there's only so many teams that we can talk about on ESPN every day. There's only so many players, and if you're on a team that's really good, or you're playing with a player who's really good, then you're gonna get talked about a little bit more.
Yep. Yep.
Shane Battier got real All-Star votes the years that he played with Yao Ming.
I mean,
because of China.
Zaza Pachulia.
And that's gonna be the Wemby effect when he joins the league.
I don't think France has anywhere near the population of China to be able to do that, but I think that Victor Wembanyama is already more of a household name than Cade Cunningham, which is pretty huge because Cade's been in the league for 2 years.
I would agree. And then last question. How do you feel about the talks of Brandon Miller maybe jumping Scoot Henderson as that number 2 in the draft?
I think it would be a mistake, but I get it. What do you think of it?
What do I think of it?
Did you watch Brandon Miller today?
Yes, I have not watched much Scoot, admittedly. I'm going off of highlights and what I've seen. I think, first of all, I think they're both hell of a player. I think they're both great players, and they're going to make a difference as they're drafted to. But when I watch Brandon Miller, I just think he has the tools. But I also thought that who went number 4th overall last year? I'm blanking. I'm so sorry. Or not
who went number 1 last year? Paulo.
Who went to the Rockets last year? I'm so sorry. Jabari. But I get the same feel from him that I got from Jabari last year when I watched him.
Brandon Miller?
The same feel.
I get where you're coming from, but it's probably just because they're very tall shooters.
I mean, I think they're both I think Brandon Miller is going to be great. I don't understand the KD comparisons. I feel like every 2 or 3 years we have a guy that they compare the KD when he comes up and through. But
yeah, he's not KD. People need to go back and watch Texas highlights for KD. Personally, I think Scoot is where the league is going. A big guard like that who can play make and create, that's like, I always look at playmaking as a number one skill set that I would look for in any player. Above shooting, above literally rebounding, defense, anything. Playmakers.
What do you mean by playmaking?
Specifically, mismatch and advantage generation, identifying and scoring passing opportunities for the offense, transition offense. Like Lonzo is a playmaker, LaMelo, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, Scottie Barnes, these are all playmakers. Even Cade Cunningham, playmakers. Non-playmakers are guys who are drastically limited in one area of the game in terms of offense, in terms of being able to generate offense through that person as a playmaker. Like Kawhi's a playmaker because he, you can literally give him the ball and expect that whatever he does with that ball, whether it be pass, score, get to the line, etc., it's going to result in reasonably above average offense. Draymond's a playmaker because he's probably going to do something with the ball that's going to result in an open three or an open cut or an open dunk or something for somebody. So yeah, that's what I look at as playmakers are like offensive engines. I see Scoot as a guy who can do that for them. So what? Sure. Yeah, but you think Brandon Miller should be number 2?
Are you asking me? I'm sorry. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't watched much Scoot. I think Brandon's a hell of a talent. I think he's top 3 regardless. I don't think anybody's going to debate that. Mm-hmm. By top 3, I mean he's number either 2 or 3. But yeah, I haven't watched much of Scoot. I've watched highlights. He's obviously very electric. I don't understand the John Morant comparison that much. Yeah, I see that a lot. I feel like I don't know. I just feel like
he gets anywhere he wants on the court, man. Like I guess that's probably the jaw thing, right? He's a really good finisher in the paint, 3-level scorer, really smart, really good playmaker. Listening to his interview with Kevin O'Connor, it was really jaw dropping to understand like how mature he is for a 20-year-old. Like just listening to him talk about being unselfish and playmaking for his teammates. I don't know. I like Scoot a lot, but as I've mentioned earlier in this chat, I was very wrong about last year's draft. So the hell do I know? And I mean, like for all intents and purposes, like maybe Victor Wembanyama ends up being like a bust or gets injured or something, because I've been saying all along that I don't think that he'll be injury prone or something. And we've seen a large history of very tall, under weight prospects do very poorly in the NBA. So look, like I mean, 2021 was billed as a generational draft because of Jalen Suggs, Cade Cunningham, largely those two guys, but also Evan Mobley, Scottie Barnes, etc. And I'm looking at that draft class now and I'm saying, would Franz go top 3? Probably should, probably would. So, Josh Giddey probably goes above Cade if we did that again, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. So, I mean, draft classes change. People are wrong all the time, and I think it's just
100% agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you think Scoot's a first pick or in 2021 or?
That's a really good question. I don't think so. I think Cade had so much hype coming out, but I do think Scoot, with where people are on him right now, probably goes top 3 that year. Maybe bumping out Evan Mobley or Jalen Green. But yeah, like I think Evan Mobley was criminally underrated because I don't think he interviewed well personally. But yeah, he's not really great at selling himself, is he? But yeah, his analytics at USC were off the charts, and I was very firmly for like him being like a top 3 pick, but also Scottie being a top 3 pick. Yeah.
It's so hard to predict anything because there's more variables than just talent that goes into it. Because there's work ethic, there's guys off the court actions, IQ developing. I mean, there's just so many variables that go into it. If there was anybody that
and the team you get drafted to, I feel like that's the most important thing.
I think I look at bounce back. Like, how do you bounce back after a bad day or a bad week or a bad season?
Exactly.
Perseverance or whatever it is, that sort of intangible quality that a human being has, grit, toughness. I think there's some sort of like next level of psychological evaluation that we need to do with prospects to better understand what makes them tick. Like, who are you? What are your traumas? What are your defaults? What are your triggers? To understand a person on a deep level, because at the end of the day, like, what you see on the court, how you respond to being coached, this is the stuff that's going to determine whether or not you're going to be a great player or not great player. Boris Diaw is a great example. Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic. There's so many guys in the NBA. Larry Bird. There's so many guys in the NBA that do not fit a prototypical, like, oh, that guy looks like a basketball player, or that guy has the perfect wingspan, the perfect physical advantages, or the perfect jump shot or whatever, and they end up being very successful because they just have a brain for this. And I think that the brain part of it is the thing that people probably missed with Scottie. And I think the brain part of it is ironically also what people missed with with Luka and with Jokic. Yeah. It's just, they're just really smart and they see things and they're not shaken by big moments.
That's such a coach's point of view that you just gave, though, about like how you want to see them fail and how they bounce back. I mean, whenever we have tryouts or whenever I talk to college coaches about my players, and they're always like, how do they respond to a 0 for day? So like 0 for 3, 0 for 4. How do they respond to an error? How do they respond to a bad pitching outing? How do they respond when they're getting heckled at by, because dudes are ruthless. And they always want to know that. They always want to know, how do guys respond? Because it's not always going to be rainbows and unicorns and roses and all that. Like, it's tough. It's super tough. I mean, especially if you're an NBA player. I mean, your whole life is being put on TV. You're on TV at least 82 times a year, at least. So
yeah, I agree. Someone's saying Ron Harper Jr. has a box plus minus of 8.8. Small sample size. So with box plus minus, it can be very, you don't want to be looking at players who've played like 10, 15 minutes, because I tell you, last year, who was that player? I'm forgetting his name now. Who joined us, got waived, joined us again.
DJ Wilson?
Yes, DJ Wilson. DJ Wilson was leading the team in almost every single analytical category because he just
Yeah.
played 4 really, really good games. It happens. Small sample sizes. Like, I don't know if any of you have studied stats or whatever in school. I certainly did. And yeah, we talk about sample biases and small sample sizes all the time. Anyway, Lane and Owen, thank you guys for
Yeah.
joining us to close out this show. We thought Vince was going to be the last person to close it out, and then you guys came on and gave us the non-Toronto based Raptor fan perspective on things. So thank you so much for that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a good one, guys.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And also, Owen, this was your first time on. Super cool, man. Thanks.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers. Alrighty. That's we've been talking so long that I have literally lost my voice at this point. I feel literally, maybe an over exaggeration, but I feel like I'm losing my voice. So time to head off to plan Pandance some more. But thank you all for joining us for 4 hours of this live stream, and hopefully we got into some pretty interesting conversations, had some funny moments, and yeah, I look forward to hopefully cheering on a better product on the court for the next 12 games. The Raptors have a pretty quick, let me just quickly look at the schedule here 1 second. So next up, Minnesota. That's Saturday, Sunday, like, so this is going to come fast, right? Like, we're going to have this 4 games, 3 games in 4 nights, and like, it's a bit of a homestand. And I think the Raptors, I think they can try to slowly eke their way back up to 500. I wouldn't sleep on anybody at this point. I wouldn't sleep on Washington, Indiana. These are teams that are directly right behind you. They're chasing you, right? Miami also, right? But teams like, for instance, Boston and Milwaukee right at the end. I mean, these are teams that easily, and I do mean easily, could be resting guys right at the end. So you may very well end up 500. I think the play-in, to those people thinking we might miss the play-in, I think tonight's game pretty much puts that to rest. I don't want to say puts it to rest, but I think we're a couple wins away probably from kissing that pipe dream of missing the play-in goodbye. And so, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. But good game tonight, good win for the Raptors, and nice balanced attack. Want to see more of this from this team going forward. If you haven't hit subscribe, please make sure to hit subscribe. And again, if you are into, if you're looking at cars, if you want to support local entrepreneurs, if you want to support young guys trying to do cool things in the world, definitely check out Queensway Automotive Group. The link is in the description below. Cheers, guys. Bye.